I'm just
Yes,
saying y'all
sir.
could be cousins.
That's real. That's real. Yeah. That's why necessarily did you ask?
Uh, Shape of your head and your cheekbones.
For sure, you're right in the haircut.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Indistinguishable hairline.
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Hello, 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 everyone. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Hello.
All right, hold on, let's see here. All right, it's so nice to see you guys. So we're gonna get this party started. Let me see, let me just mute. Let's see, mute. All right. All right, guys. So welcome to the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Tonight, we're going to be talking about all things dealing with trust. So I'm super excited that you guys are here. So I have a short presentation for you guys. So we'll go through a couple of different slides. And then after that, I will open up the floor for Q&A and I'll answer any and all questions that you guys might have based on the information that I'm going to go over tonight. So, with that being said, let me introduce myself. So, I am Christine Ave. I'm the founder of Seven Ways to Wealth, and I am a trustee, you guys. I have been a trustee for the last 10 years, and what I do is I help people learn about trusteeship. So, they set up their trust and they learn how to properly operate it so that they can protect their assets. So, tonight, what I'm going to be doing is just educating you guys and teaching you guys what a trust entity is because a lot of you guys are not familiar with what a trust is. You heard the term trust, but you don't really know like what it is, how to create one, how to actually use one, how to build wealth with one. So those are all the things that we're going to be going over tonight. All right. So we're just going to dive right in. So let me share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. All right. Yep. So once again, I'm Christina Ebet. One thing that I want to tell you guys is how I actually got started with trusteeship because a lot of people they ask like what is their why, right? And so for me, my why is me saving the 14-year-old version of me, right? So it was that girl that was living in an abandoned building with her parents with no utilities. And I later on found out that we were, squatters. And thank God that my mom had got us onto Section 8 so that we can get out of that abandoned building. And so at 14, I actually went and started working at McDonald's. I filled out an application. On the application, I lied and I said that I was 16 so I could get the job. Why? Because I wanted to help my parents actually, be able to pay for the utilities so that we could have running water and we could have light. So when I started working at McDonald's, I like that entrepreneur spark, it lit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to be owning this franchise. Like, I want to get into, business. And so later, fast forward, I ended up going to college because I saw that my parents struggled financially. And one thing that they didn't have was a college degree. So I thought that that was my way out of poverty. And so I went and I actually ended up getting a degree in nursing. And I started working as a nurse. And when I started working as a nurse, the hospital that I worked at, that hospital was short staffed. So I was working 5, 6 days a week, and I was working 12-hour shifts, and I was burnt out at what, 22, 23 years old. And I had a 1-year-old baby at that time, and I was not spending any time with my baby. I was letting my mom raise my baby. And so it was very frustrating for me. And I was like, what do I need to do in order to get back more of my time so that I can spend that time with my baby? Because I can't just let my mom raise him, right? I got to be there for him, but I'm stuck in the hospital 6 days a week, right? All day, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So one day I was driving to work and I hear this guy, right, on the radio, and he's like, "Do you want to learn how to flip houses?" And so it sparked my interest again. And I was like, "Yeah, I want to learn." And so I went to a seminar. It was a 3-day seminar where they teach you about real estate. And so in that seminar, I learned so much. I learned everything that I wanted to know about real estate. And I started a business. I started an LLC. So it was my real estate investment company, right? And so 6 months after that seminar, I bought my first property. And so it was a fix and flip. So I ended up buying that property with no money. I didn't have to use any of my own money. I got a hard money lender. That hard money lender was actually my mentor. So he, showed me the ropes when it came to this real estate transaction. And I bought that property for 89,000. It was a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath house in Miami. And I sold it for $235,000. And so in that one transaction, that one piece of real estate changed my entire life. And it set me free because I'm like, wow, I can make 6 figures off of one house. Like, why am I, busting my behind in the hospital and not getting to raise my son, right? So in the midst of me actually doing this first transaction, my mentor told me, he said, you need to put that property into a trust. And I'm like, huh? What is a trust, right? Now, mind you, this was 10 years ago, right? This was in 2015. I was 25 years old. I didn't know anything. This was my first property. I was young. I was new to this real estate industry. I didn't know anything. And so I didn't want to put myself in a position to where somebody could slip and fall, they could step on a nail, they could get hit by plywood, whatever the situation is, right? I didn't want to put myself in a situation to where somebody could take the property from me. And so I listened to what he said and I went and set up a trust and I put that property into a trust before I later sold it. And I have been operating in trustee ever since. So, like I said, that was in 2015. We're in 2025. That was 10 years ago, right? So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to teach you some things about trusteeship because the game is different when you decide to operate as a trustee versus how many of you guys might be operating now, which is either as a sole proprietor in your personal name or as as an authorized member for your LLCs, okay? So that's a little bit backstory about me. I have helped thousands of people set up their trusts and protect their assets like their businesses and their homes. And so I'm just here to educate you guys so that you can get the right information for you to know if a trust is for you, for your family, or for your business, okay? So with that being said, let's hit the ground running. So the first thing I want you guys to know is what the trust is, okay? So what is a trust entity? So first and foremost, a trust is an entity. So just like how you're an entity, you may not see yourself as an entity, but you are, okay? So you're out here in society operating with what? With your name and your social, right? The same thing with a business, right? So a business is operating out here with a business name and an EIN. The trust is also going to be operating out here in society with a trust name and an EIN, okay? So it is an entity. It's a legal entity that you can operate, okay? Now, with this entity, it can do anything and everything that you can do. So if you are able to buy a house, right, in your personal name, the trust is also able to buy a house. If you are able to build credit, the trust is also able to build credit. If you are able to be an author of a book, the trust is also able to be an author of a book. So there's no limitations to what a trust can and cannot do out here in society. So just know that everything that you can do, a trust can also do, okay? Which is extremely powerful. Now, let's talk about how does this entity come into existence, right? How do we actually create this entity? It is simple. The entity is what we call a contractual entity. So it comes into existence by way of a contract. So you have to go and create a contract, which is specifically you actually putting this document together to create a trust, okay? So there's two very important parts to this contract, okay? Now, the first part is the declaration of contract. That's where you're declaring what you're setting up because there's thousands of different contracts, right? Is it a joint venture? Is it a partnership? What is it? It is a trust contract, okay? Now, the next thing is the actual indenture. The word indenture means agreement. So what type of agreement are you actually putting together here, right? So that is where you're going to put the actual terms and conditions or the rules and regulations of how you want the trust to be operated, okay? So so just think about it kind of like you're operating an agreement for your LLC, but it's way more lengthier because we have way more provisions, okay? So those provisions, I'm going to be throwing a lot of trust terms for you guys. So just write them down or just start to become familiar if you know that this is what you want to do, right? So provisions, right? So provisions are those terms and conditions that we talk about, okay? Those are what we call bylaws. So what are the restrictions or what is allowed for, for that person to be able to do, right? So specifically the trustees and anyone else involved in the contract. So now let's go ahead and talk about the different parties involved in this contract, okay? Who are the parties? The first party that I want you to know about is the actual grantor, okay? The grantor, and so you guys are going to hear, I'm going to teach you a lot of different terminology. So when you hear the word grantor, okay, that word can also be interchangeable with the word settlor or the word trustor. When you start to do your research on trust, right, and you see settlor, that means grantor. Grantor means creator. So who actually created the trust, okay? So your grantor is the creator of the trust. This is the individual, one of the parties, because it takes two parties involved for this type of contract, right? So the creator is the grantor, right? And the grantor is the one that not only creates the trust, but they're going to donate the first asset into the trust, okay? It could be cash money, it could be a property, it could be anything, okay? So that's the first part or party of the contract. The second party of the contract is the trustee, okay? So it takes two, a grantor and a trustee. Now, the trustee is the controller of the trust. That is the individual who is going to be operating the trust on a day-to-day basis. So for my entrepreneurs that are on here, whoever's running your business, that is your position, right? So you have an LLC and you're the member of the LLC. It's the same thing with a trust. You have a trust and you're the trustee, which is the person who's operating the entity, okay? So that means that because you're operating the trust on a day-to-day basis, you're doing all the hiring, the firing, everything dealing with whatever products or services that the trust sells, right? But then also you're managing the assets that are inside of the trust, right? So if the trust owns cash, you're managing those trust funds. If the trust owns a house, you're managing that house, right? So like I said, the trustee is the person who controls the trust. Now, the next party involved is the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the individual who's going to inherit the assets that are inside of the trust. They're the inheritors, okay? So with the trust, right, you have an establishment date. That is the day that the actual agreement happened. So if it's me and you that are actually creating the trust, and we're creating the trust today, then we're going to say that today is our establishment date. So today is May 29th, 2025. That is going to be considered the birthday of the trust, okay? All right, now, you have to determine a length of time of how long you want this trust to exist for, right? You can choose 50 years, 100 years, whatever works for you. Now, let's just say that you choose 100 years, right? Once that 100-year mark is up, that means that the trust is going to expire. When the trust expires, all those assets go to the beneficiary, okay? But the name of what you want, the ultimate goal is for you to renew the trust so that it can exist for generations and generations, right? A lot of you guys are intentional when it comes to building generational wealth, right? And the only way that that wealth is actually going to last the next generation is by you actually creating a legacy. And one thing that you need with that legacy is you need a trust estate so that that money that's inside of the trust, right? Because the trust is going to outlive you. So that money that's inside of the trust is actually going to reach the next generation, okay? And the next generation is what we call our beneficiaries. So a lot of you guys, you've heard the term trust fund baby, right? So the trust fund baby, it's sometimes it has a negative connotation to it, but not over here. So a trust fund baby is a good thing. We need to normalize trust fund babies in our community, okay? So our kids, our grandkids, our great grandkids, they are trust fund babies, okay? They are beneficiaries to a trust estate that we have created, okay? So let's continue on. Now, there's several different types of trust. There's hundreds of different types of trust. And these types of trusts are created for specific reasons or purposes, okay? Every single trust has what we call a purpose and intent. So what is the reason for you actually creating that trust, okay? Now, what I want to do is I want to give you several different categories that every single trust falls under, okay? So you have to just be mindful of that. Now, let's go through it. The first category that I want to give you is express versus implied. An express trust is a written trust. That means that it is in a contract style, it is written, it's in black and white paper, it's physical, okay? So if somebody says, where's the trust? Boom, you can produce it, right? Versus an implied trust. A implied trust is where you have that verbal agreement that happens between the grantor and the trustee. And so it was all verbal, right? Oral. And so there is no actual physical paper that exists with it, okay? So just be mindful of that. Now, the next category that I want to give you is simple versus complex. A simple trust is a trust where it's shorter in nature, which means that it has less bylaws, right? Less provisions, less rules and regulations, okay? But with a simple trust, the trustee is required to give all the trust funds to the beneficiaries. That means that they have to distribute all the money that's coming in, right? If 10,000 is coming in, 10,000 is going out. Okay, so that's with a simple trust. The next category is complex, right? So it's simple versus complex. So a complex trust is a trust where it's longer in nature, right? So that means that there's more provisions and more bylaws, okay? Now, because it's longer in nature, with this type of trust, the trustee is not required to distribute all the trust funds. So that means that the trustee can decide to hold those trust funds in an actual bank account, and that can be for, you know, operation expenses or other, or even investments, okay? You don't have to distribute that money to the beneficiary, okay? So the next category that I want to tell you guys about is discretionary versus non-discretionary. A discretionary trust is a trust where the trustee has full discretion to be able to make all of the decisions for the trust, even if it's not inside of the contract. Meaning, the example that I like to give is if you are operating a trust and you are the trustee and you decide, hey, I think that it's time for us to buy some Bitcoin, right? Nowhere in the trust contract does it talk about Bitcoin, right? But you know, hey, I think it's a good investment. Let's get into crypto, right? So with that being said, because it's discretionary, you as the trustee can make that decision, even though it's not inside of the contract, okay? Because it's in the best interest of the estate to get inside, to initiate this type of investment versus non-discretionary. Non-discretionary means that you as the trustee that's operating the trust, that has full control, are not able to make decisions outside of what's inside of the contract. So that means that you can't go buy crypto because the trust contract never said anything about crypto, okay? So you're limited with a non-discretionary trust. Let's continue. The next category that I want to tell you guys about is statutory versus non-statutory, okay? So a statutory trust is where you have chosen a specific state where you actually want to set up this trust, right? And so every single state has its own laws. Those laws are called statutes and codes, okay? And so with a statutory trust, those statutes and codes are embedded inside of the contract, okay? Which means that the state has jurisdiction to be able to regulate your trust. Your trust, 9 times out of 10, is required to be registered in the public records in that state. And with the statutory trust, you are only limited to be able to operate that trust in that state. So if you set up a statutory trust in Florida, you can only use it in Florida. You can't use it anywhere else where you have property or business dealings, okay? So you have some limitations with the statutory trust versus a non-statutory. So a non-statutory trust is where you have set up your trust in a specific state, but you decided not to put any state statutes or codes. So because there's no state statutes and codes, it's actually going to be operating under the common law jurisdiction, right? Which is the republic of that state, right? So when that state was in its sovereign, when it was in its sovereign status, okay? Now, with that being said, because it is non-statutory, you can actually use it in the entire nation as well as all of the US territories. You're not restricted to only being able to operate it in that state. Another thing is that it's not going to be registered with the public records, so your trust is going to be private, okay? Which is exactly what you want. You don't want people to have access to your trust contract and for them to know what's inside of the contract. Because if they know what's inside of the contract, then they know the assets that you've placed in there and they know who you've listed as the beneficiaries, okay? All right, so let's talk about the last category that I want to tell you guys about, which is revocable versus irrevocable, okay? So with a when we're referring to revocable versus irrevocable, we're only referring to one party in this contract, okay? Remember, there's several different parties. So the one party that we're referring to is the grantor, which is the creator. So with a revocable trust, what we're saying with the revocable trust is that the grantor and the trustee are the same person, okay? So usually, typically with that type of trust, the one individual will be the grantor, the trustee, and the beneficiary. Because they serve as all three, creditors can come after those individuals. And if they come after those individuals, then they can penetrate through the trust because the trust is seen as their alter ego. So with a revocable trust, your assets are not fully protected, right? So because the grantor is able to make changes, if they were to put property, they can take it back out. They can remove trustees and beneficiaries. They can do all these things. So because the grantor has so much control and power, and they're pretty much administering the trust, is seen as their alter ego. So whoever's coming after the grantor, they will come after the trust, okay? So with a revocable trust, it's only going to prevent you from avoiding probate, right? It's not going to fully protect any assets that you place inside of that trust. Because in the event that there's a lawsuit that might happen, where let's just say that a creditor comes after the trust estate, and that trust was to end up in litigation, the judge will pierce through a revocable trust. And if they do, then that trust is going to be a part of the public records. So like I said, everybody's going to know what's inside of the trust, what assets you have in there, the net worth, the beneficiaries, everything. They're going to know everything, right? Which is not what you want. It's not ideal, okay? Now, let's talk about the other category, which is irrevocable. So what are we saying? We're saying that the grantor has irrevocability. So that means that they cannot make any changes. They cannot revoke the trust or terminate it. They cannot remove trustees, beneficiaries, and if they were to place assets in the trust, they cannot take them back out, okay? So with that type of trust, the grantor and the trustee cannot be the same person, okay? Because the grantor has no power, no control. The trustee has all the power and all the control. So for this type of trust, you want to be the trustee and not the grantor, okay? Because you have to pick one position. Now, with that being said, with a irrevocable trust, your assets are fully protected. Creditors cannot come after an irrevocable trust. If an irrevocable trust was to end up in litigation, the judge would decide not to pierce through an irrevocable trust. It's highly unlikely that they would do so, which means that you get to actually maintain the privacy of that trust contract, okay? All right, let's continue on. Okay, so how do we actually create the trust, right? I just gave you guys a list of several different categories that every single trust falls under, okay? So what you have to do is you have to do your research and your due diligence to choose the best type of trust for you. Now, the trust that I recommend, which is the trust that we call as a bulletproof trust, right? A bulletproof trust, which is impenetrable, which means that, you know, that your assets are protected. They are going to fall on this type of trust. A bulletproof trust falls under these categories, right? So it is express in nature. It is discretionary. It is complex in nature. It is non-statutory, and it is irrevocable. So it should have it should fall under all 5 of those categories in order for it to be bulletproof, okay? Assets fully protected, okay? So do your research and choose the best type of trust for you, for your family, for your business, okay? That's step number 1. Now let's move on to step number 2. So now that you've determined the type of trust that you're going to create, the first thing you have to do is name the trust, okay? There's 2 things that I need you to keep in mind when naming your trust. The first thing is do not name the trust after yourself. That is the biggest mistake that people make out here in society. If their name is Rebecca Smith, they're going to name the trust the Rebecca Smith Trust. That is the biggest mistake because people now know that you're associated with that trust because you've literally named it after yourself. So if somebody wanted to come after Rebecca Smith, they say, oh, she got a trust, let's go after her trust. So you need to use very unique, distinct names that's not going to tie back to you. So you can use, you know, let's say, cloudy day, right? It's something random, right? But that's the name of the trust. The name of the trust is cloudy day. It's 2 words that I put together that I, you know, created an entity. So it's just the same thing as when you opened up your business, right? Whatever you called your business, you created that, you came up with that. So it's the same thing with the trust, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is that you don't have to have the word trust in the actual name. So just like how you have your LLCs that end in LLC or your corporations that end in Inc., well, the trust name doesn't have to end with the word trust, okay? So once again, you don't want to make it easy for people to come after your trust. So you're not even going to have the word trust in the name. Let their minds wander and let them think that it is a company or something else other than a trust, okay? So now that you have created a name for your trust, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to appoint the different parties for the contract. So the first appointment you're going to do is the grantor. So appoint someone who is going to serve as the creator of the trust. The second position is the trustee. Appoint someone who is going to serve as the controller of the trust. So typically I recommend you, if you want to be operating your trust every day, if you want to have full control over the assets and manage everything, then you're going to appoint yourself as the trustee. Then it's your beneficiaries. So typically your beneficiaries are your children, okay? So your beneficiaries are going to be the people, the individuals, or the entities that you actually want to inherit your assets, okay? Whoever you want to do that, then put them as the beneficiary. The last position is the successor trustee, you guys. So the successor trustee is the individual who's going to take over after you in the event that something happens to you, meaning that let's just say you didn't wake up tomorrow. Let's just say that you are incapacitated in the hospital. Let's just say that you are old and decide that you want to resign from operating the trust. Somebody needs to be able to take over after you and continue to operate the trust. They pick up where you left off. You have to name that successor trustee. So they're not going to be operating the trust today. You are. But the minute that you stop, like the same day, that person, the successor trustee, moves into an active role and now they're the trustee, okay? So just keep that in mind. Now, let's move on to step 3, which is you actually creating the trust agreement. Remember, it is a contract, you guys. And because it's a contract, you have to create it. So you got to come up with these terms and conditions, these bylaws, all these provisions. One of the provisions that we stress you have to put in there is highly recommended are spendthrift provisions, right? So spendthrift, what is a spendthrift? A spendthrift is an individual that is actually spending the money frivolously, right? And so typically these are your beneficiaries, and your beneficiaries, you have to understand, those beneficiaries, they are going to blow the dough. They do it every single time. Why? Because you didn't put no restrictions in place. And so you let them, you basically set it up to where it's a free for all, right? Oh, here's $100,000. They blow the $100,000 in 6 months, right? So you have to put rules and regulations, or what we call spendthrift provisions, which is how you want them to actually spend the money. So one thing that we do is we'll do an age restriction, right? So we'll say, hey, you're not going to be receiving distributions until you're 25, because we feel like 25 is a mature age. You out of college, you got a degree or something, or you in your career, you got a business, you got something going on, right? Versus when you're 17, right? So why are we going to be giving you $10,000 a month when you're 17 versus when you're 25, you're mature, you're going to go buy your first house, you're going to go buy your first car, whatever it is that you're doing at 25, right? So that's one, we'll put an age restriction. The other thing is we'll put restrictions on how they can spend the money, right? So we'll say, hey, you can spend the money on housing, on college education, on investments, on business, but you can't spend it on drugs, partying, lavish vacations, designer bags, whatever it is, right? Whatever you feel resonates with you, with your family, with your organization, you're going to put it inside of the trust contract, okay? So now that you're done setting up the trust contract, the next thing you have to do is you have to legalize the trust. The way that you legalize the trust is by getting it notarized. So it's going to be notarized by notary public, and there's 2 signatures that are required. The first signature is the grantor signature. The second signature is the trustee signature. So once you have both of those signatures, then the notary is going to witness those signatures and they're going to put their seal. Once they put their seal, that is a legal entity that can be operated. So now it's time for you to start operating the trust. The first thing that you're going to do when you begin to operate your trust is you're going to go ahead and get an EIN number with the IRS, right? And the reason why you're going to do that is for banking purposes, because you want to go ahead and open up a bank account, you know, so that you are able to deposit trust funds in that bank account, okay? So you're gonna go ahead and get an EIN with the IRS. That's that 9-digit number, so that when you're operating out here in society, you're operating with the trust name, you're operating with the EIN. You need to stop using your personal name and stop using your social, okay? You're all over the public records. People could literally show up at your house right now because you don't put your name and your social and your address and your phone number everywhere, okay? And if you don't believe me, go ahead and Google yourself. You'll find it. So with that being said, you're going to start using the trust name, the trust EIN, the trust address for everything, okay? So that you can remain private. Now, what is the first thing that you're going to do? Well, once you have already set up that trust and you got the EIN, you're going to go ahead and open up the bank account. You're going to go ahead and open up that trust fund, right? And so where can you actually get it, right? So you can get a trust fund account at a bank, at a credit union, or even at a brokerage firm, okay? Typically, the types of accounts that you're going to get are checking accounts, savings accounts, money market accounts, or cash management accounts, okay? All of those types of accounts are considered trust funds, okay? And you can house, funds, money that belongs to the trust. That's what a trust fund is, right? Money that belongs to a trust. Simple. We don't have to make it more complex than it really is. All right? So now, when you go to the bank, and one thing that I want to tell you is that you have to do your research. Not every single bank offers trust accounts. Okay, so you call them, you go on their website to make sure that they offer a trust account, okay? Now, when you decide, hey, I want to establish a banking relationship with this bank, right? You're going to go to the bank and you're going to tell them to open up a checking account for you. And they're going to ask you for, proof that the trust exists. There's two items that you're going to bring with you. The first one is your certificate of trust. The second one is your EIN confirmation letter with the IRS, okay? So with the certificate of trust, right? What is it? Well, a certificate of trust is proof of identity that the actual trust exists. Remember, let's just say your trust is 100 pages. You're not going to be walking around with 100 pages going to the bank. No. What you're going to do is you're going to walk around with 2-3 pages, which is your certificate of trust. Okay, it is a summary of the things dealing with the trust. So, for example, when somebody asks you for proof of identity, right? What is it that you give them? Somebody could come off mute, let me know. What is it that you give them?
Not my birth certificate.
Wait a minute. So if you at Publix or Kroger, you pulling out your birth certificate when they ask for proof of identity if you using your credit card?
No, I said not my birth certificate.
Oh, okay. So my question is, what do you use to prove your identity?
ID.
Driver's license.
Your driver's license. Okay. So on your driver's license, it has a bunch of information about you, right?
Right.
Okay, so the certificate of trust is the same thing. It has a bunch of information about the trust. For example, your driver's license has your name, it has your height, maybe your weight, it has your address, it has an ID number, right? And so the same thing with the certificate of trust. It has the name, it has when it was established, which is quote unquote a date of birth, right? It has the grantor, who's the trustee, what's the address, what's the EIN number. It has all of these identifying information as well. Okay, so that's what you're going to give every single time that you want to prove the identity of the trust. Meaning that if you're going down to the DMV because you're switching the title of your car, you give them a certificate of trust. If you're going to go ahead and buy a house or sell a house, you give them the certificate of trust. If you're going to go ahead and open up a bank account or an investment account or buy stocks or crypto, whatever, you give them the certificate of trust. Okay, so that's what you have to bring with you to the bank. So now that the bank has received this information, they're going to go ahead and open up a checking account for you, and then you're going to fund that account, right? So that is you funding it with whatever you want. Some banks, right, their minimum is different. So some banks, they'll have $100 minimum. Some will have a $500 minimum. Some will have $1,000 minimum. It depends on the bank that you decide to establish a banking relationship with, okay? All right, so we're going to continue on. Let's get back to the slides. So with that being said, after you guys open up the bank account, the next thing, let's move on to step 6, which is actually transferring the assets. Somebody's off mute.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. So the most important step, you guys, is for you to actually transfer your asset inside of the trust. This is the step that I see people make the biggest mistake. They never legally transfer their assets, right? And so they'll go ahead and set up a trust, and then they'll never put their house into the trust. They'll never put their car into the trust. They'll never put the bank account into the trust. They'll never put the insurance policy into the trust. They'll never put their jewelry or whatever it is that they have into the trust, right? So this is the biggest mistake. Because with this asset that you have, right, there is a legal step that you have to take, especially with the house. You have a deed. With the car, you have a title. So you have to legally transfer those things with the county, with the state. Okay, so that is the next step that you have to take. When it comes to you actually transferring your assets, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to list the asset inside of the trust contract that is going to be owned by the trust. Then the next thing you're going to do is actually transfer the property, right? Or the asset. So for example, let's just say that you have your primary residence, right? This is the house where you live. This is the house where your kids live, right? And so with this, when you bought that house, you got a warranty deed. So you have to re-deed the property into the name of the trust. So you're going to create a new deed. We use quitclaim deeds. So you create a new deed and you're deeding it over from your personal name into the name of the trust. And then you're going to go down to the county recorder's office at the clerk of courts. You're going to submit the new deed. So whoever is on the deed, right? So if it's you, your husband, your wife, whoever, everybody got to sign whoever is on the deed. Okay. And then you, like I said, you go down to the county recorder's office, you submit the new deed. So now they're going to record it. And now it's going to reflect on the public records that the new owner of that property is the trust, right? It's an entity. It's no longer owned by you. Okay. That's extremely powerful because now if somebody decides to come after you, they can't touch your house. Why? Because you don't own it. Right? And we'll talk about that. So let's see here. All right, so we're going to talk about asset protection. Just give me one moment, you guys.
Can I ask a question about what you just said?
I've been through some of these initial steps. What's your question?
Thank you. Is it an advantage to putting the deed in the LLC before you put it in the trust?
Um, I've been coached, and I certainly cannot speak for Ms. Yvette, but I've been coached that your LLC owning anything is a problem. An LLC is a lower tier entity that is basically a revenue pass through. That's where you can, car wash and whatever profits you happen to make from a car wash. When your LLC owns that car wash, your LLC files the taxes, obviously, correct? Even though the car wash or the coin laundry or whatever it is, it might have, Sunshine Coin operating, but it's owned by an LLC, correct?
Right.
So then when an LLC is holding that property and has to file taxes, the exposure that she was referring to, that the ability for people to sue you and come after things, that that LLC owning the business or the equipment and things of that nature, it makes that equipment and all those assets exposed and not protected. So then what happens is the trust that she's asking us to investigate winds up landing in place so that the trust owns Sunshine, coin operator, whatever, and the LLC is managing that location so that when the LLC profits, the management company basically takes those profits from the operation and then, takes its administrative portion and then passes through the funds to the trust ultimately.
Are you guys getting value so far? If you guys getting value, please go ahead and put a fire in the chat. I want to see. Come on, guys. What's up? What's up? What's up? How's it going? So we've been here for almost an hour. We're about to land this plane. You guys enjoying the webinar so far?
Yeah.
Okay, I see some
Yes.
fireballs. Okay, awesome. All right. Okay, I'm excited too. So let's continue. We got a couple more slides and then we will go ahead and dive into Q&A, everybody. So let me go ahead back to sharing my screen here. All right, so let's talk about asset protection, okay? Asset protection is the number one reason why we want to set up a trust, right? Because a lot of us, our assets are not protected. Like I said, they could literally knock on your door and take everything away from you. Why? Because you have everything in your personal name, right? So with that being said, what can a trust actually protect you from? It can protect you from bankruptcies. It could protect you from divorces. It could protect you from foreclosures. It could protect you from heavy taxes. It could protect you from lawsuits. And it could also protect you from probate, right? So let's talk about a few of these. So the first one that I want to discuss is divorce, right? Because the divorce rates are high. And so with that being said, a lot of us, we don't even know that a divorce is a transfer of wealth, you guys. Sometimes one spouse will end up with everything, the other spouse will end up with nothing, right? Which is highly unfortunate. But that is a lawsuit between two spouses, right? You're going to end up in court and they want to know everything that's in your personal name, right? So every house that you own in your personal name, all of your income, your checking accounts, your 401ks, your pensions, everything that you have, all the stocks, the bonds, the crypto, everything. They want to know everything that you have in your personal name, right? So not only do they want to know your assets, they want to know your liabilities too. So your credit cards, your personal loans, your lines of credit, everything, right? And so the way that a trust can actually protect you from a divorce is because if you set up a trust and you place a house into a trust, they cannot pull that trust into the divorce because the divorce is between you and the spouse. The divorce is not between you and the trust, right? Or the trust is a separate entity from you. You are not the trust is not you. So if you have $500,000, if you have stocks, if you have a car, if you have a house inside of that trust, it cannot be pulled into that divorce. So you might want to think about that because sometimes, people change, situation change, financial, status change. And so you never know, okay? You want to protect yourself. The next thing is heavy taxes. A lot of us are giving away half of our income to the IRS. Why? Because we don't have trust within our structure, right? And so one of the beautiful things about a trust, because first of all, did anybody on the call know that the IRS taxes you when you die? Did anyone know that there's a death tax?
No.
Anybody?
I did.
I didn't, but
Yeah,
that's crazy.
it is crazy. They
Yes.
tax you on the way out.
Wow.
There's a death tax, There's an inheritance tax. There's so many different types of taxes, right? And so we got to protect ourselves. So now, right, if when the IRS tax you for the death tax, right, they're going to go after the money that's in your checking account, that's in your personal name, because you're the person that died, right? Versus the trust, right? If you got $500,000 sitting in the trust, they can't charge the trust a death tax. They can't charge the trust an inheritance tax. The trust didn't die, right? So you have to be mindful of these things, right? Another thing is, one of the trusts that we use within our structure is a charitable trust, right? And so with this trust, what the IRS allows you to do is they allow you to do charitable contributions up to 60% of your annual gross income. What the hell does that mean? So what it means is you're like let's just say you a W-2 employee, right? And let's just say that you make $100,000 for simple terms, right? For simple numbers, you make $100,000 for the entire year, right? You got to pay taxes on the $100,000. But what the IRS allows you to do is they allow you to donate up to $60,000 or 60% of your annual gross income to a charity of your choice. So obviously you're going to choose your own charity, right? There is no restrictions that says that you cannot choose your own charity, right? So now instead of you being taxed on that 60,000, you're going to donate that 60,000 to your own charity where you control what happens in that charity, right? Which is a trust, okay? And so with that 60,000, you could buy stocks, buy real estate, you can buy crypto, you can do any kind of investments, you could buy a business, right? Somebody was talking about a coin laundry, you can do whatever you want with that 60,000, okay? So it's very important and very strategic for you to play the game the right way, right? It's a game that we're playing out here. And so you got to have the tools in order to play, okay? And a trust is one of those tools, okay? Let's talk about lawsuits. So somebody was talking about it, right? So we'll dive into this, right? So the United States of America, you guys, is a sue-friendly country. Please do not wait until you're getting sued for you to protect yourself from a lawsuit. Every single person wants to sue you. Your tenants want to sue you. Your clients want to sue you. Your customers want to sue you. Your siblings want to sue you. Your parents want to sue you. Your coworkers, your neighbors, your best friends, everybody wants to sue you. Okay? Do not walk around here naive thinking that you're not going to get sued. Okay? It takes one car accident. It takes one slip and fall, right? So you have to protect yourself from a lawsuit. Now, a lot of people, they think that that they're protected because they're operating a business, right? So let's just say that you're operating an LLC. What does LLC stand for? Come off mute. I'm not by myself here. Come off mute. Let me know, what does LLC stand for?
Limited liability corporation or company.
Thank you. Exactly. So you have a limited liability company, right? So you hear it in the actual name. So the company that you're creating has limited liability. So it's an LLC. So if that company has limited liability, who do you think has the other limited portion of that liability? Come off mute,
We
you guys,
do
let me
directly,
know. Yeah,
whoever whoever the owners are,
huh?
whoever the owners are.
Exactly. Thank you. So whoever the owners are, right? So if you are the owner, right? So when you set up your LLC, come on, let's talk, you guys. I want to have a conversation, okay? I'm lit over here. So when you set up your LLC, who did you list as the owner? Derek, who you listed as the owner?
Ourselves.
Yeah, I'm general manager.
Yourself? Okay, so Brian, you're the GM?
Derek is.
Okay,
Oh,
Derek. Derek.
okay. It's a lot of people in here. All right, who else? So when you set up the LLC, what position did you put yourself as?
As the owner.
Okay, thank you. Right? You put yourself as the owner. So guess what? Doesn't that mean that you're liable?
Yeah. You have
Okay,
to pick
all
up the
right.
other slack, huh?
Exactly. So a lot of us, that's the way that we set up our LLC because we didn't know any better. Why? Because the LLC is the most famous entity. Okay. Everybody and their mama got an LLC, right? Because you want limited asset protection. It's limited, but you don't know that. So, what is going to happen if somebody decides to sue your LLC, right? They could potentially come after you, right? So a lot of us, when we set up the LLC, we put ourselves as the authorized member, right? That means that we're the owner on paper on the public records. Do you know that your LLC is on the public records with the Secretary of State? Do you know that all it takes is for somebody to go down to the Secretary of State, put the name of your business, and they're able to find all of your information as the authorized member? Like literally, like your address, they could show up to your door. Please don't have your personal address on the Secretary of State. That's a liability, right? You are what we call low-hanging fruit to these attorneys and lawyers that are ready to sue. They're ready to take everything from you because guess what? Goes right in their pocket, right? So what happens? So let's just say that you're running a business, right? You got your LLC. And let's just say you got a high liability business, right? So, like one of my friends got a trucking company. So, you got these big 18 wheelers on the road. One thing happened to the next, right? There's an accident. So now you have these, people that are suing your company, right? And so they go after your LLC. There's a judgment, $500,000. The LLC can't afford the judgment. The LLC don't even have $500,000 in the business bank account. So then what is going to happen? The judge has the potential to pierce through that corporate veil. So that's the tiny little itsy bitsy bit of protection that you thought that you had. You thought that you was protected, right? So you had this little tiny covering with your LLC. It's called a corporate veil. The judge pierces through the corporate veil and goes after the authorized member. You are the authorized member. They're coming after you for how much? $500,000. So what are they going to do? They're going to garnish your wages. They're going to garnish every single bank account that you have in your personal name. They are going to seize all of your assets in order to cover that liability. That means your house gotta go. Your car gotta go. Your jewelry, whatever's in there. You got antiques, you got a Picasso, whatever it is that you got, they're taking it. Why? Because you got a judgment. So it's very dangerous for you to play the game that way, right? For you to be the owner of your business. Please, everyone, do not be the direct owner of your business. Your business needs to be your business needs to be owned and managed by a business trust. Remember, we said there's hundreds of different types of trusts. So you need a very unique and specialized trust
I
that
like
is
that.
designed and created specifically to manage other legal entities like LLCs and corporations. So now once you set up that trust, you're going to go down to the Secretary of State's website. You're going to do an amendment to the articles of organization that you did when you formed that LLC, and you're going to remove your name because you don't want to be liable for that LLC no more. You're going to remove your name. Then you're going to put the business trust name. You're going to send that amendment off to the Secretary of State. They're going to process it. They're going to update the public records. Now it's not going to show your name anymore. It's going to show whose name now? It's going to show the business trust name now. So now you off the hook. You don't own the business anymore. The business trust owns the LLC. That's exactly the way that you want to be structured. Because guess what happens at this point? The business trust is now 100% liable for that LLC. So if anything goes down with the LLC, they're going to come after the business trust. They're not going to come after you, Brian. They're not going to come after you, Derek. That is exactly what you want. You want to be protected. And that's what asset protection looks like, because your LLC is an asset. Your corporation is an asset. That's the way you need to look at it. That's the way that you need to treat it. Which means that that asset can be directly owned by a trust. So make the trust the owner. Because the last thing you want to do is protect yourself from a lawsuit when it's too late, right? I'll tell you a short little story. I have a client that just came to me 2 weeks ago, right? And so he met me a week before, and he's like, "Hey, I need a trust." I said, "Okay, no problem. Let's get started." Right? He ghosted me. So then a week later, he's like, "Hey, I'm ready now. I'm being sued." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" He said, "I was in the process of evicting my tenant. And in the process of the eviction, now she's saying that her son did a slip and fall, and now they're suing me." I said, "Oh, Lord." And guess what? The property is owned by one LLC, right? One LLC. This one LLC owns 10 properties. Guess what's up for grabs? 10 homes, not one. That lady could literally wipe him out if she wanted to, especially if her son sustains some serious injuries. That's if her son actually fell. Because the last time I checked, if you're trying to evict me and my kids, I'm going to pull a stunt. So that's not what you want. You don't want to be a victim to people like that. That they will literally snatch. I'm telling you, it takes one wrong move. So you got to be properly structured. It's super important. So take your name off the LLC. You're doing bad business out here. Even if you the brand, I'm the brand, I'm the face of the brand. My name is not on there though. Okay? So now let's continue on, right? So now that you have submitted the Secretary of State, now that the business trust is the owner, right? You're good to go with that. So that's exactly what you want, right? So now let's talk about the next thing, right? Let's go back to my slides, okay? We got 2 or 3 more slides and then I'm landing this plane, y'all. So the next thing is probate. Who knows about probate? Let me check the pulse in the room. Who knows about probate? Okay,
I
let
know.
me ask y'all a better question. Okay, here's the question. I love this question. Okay, this is a pop quiz. Who's ready for the pop quiz?
Go.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Kiana's ready for the pop quiz. Okay. All right. So this is the pop quiz, right? You got a house, right? You the owner, your name is on the deed, everything, right? You fancy, real fancy. So let's just say, Dominico, okay. So let's just say, right, with this house that you own, right? Let's just say you didn't wake up tomorrow. If you didn't wake up tomorrow and you got a son and a daughter, the pop quiz question is, how do you expect for that property to be transferred to their name? Let me hear it.
Put it in a trust.
My last
That is
will and
that is
testament.
not the answer.
My
How
last
is it
will and
gonna
testament.
happen? Your last will and testament. Okay, that's one.
It'll
What?
go to
That's
pro-
one.
it'll go to-
Huh?
Put it in a
it'll go
trust.
to probate.
It goes to the
Is
court
that
system.
what Steve says going to probate? So that means that
No,
who said no?
we don't want to go to probate. Put it in the trust so it'll go to my babies.
No, 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 no.
Right. So, but the thing
The
is
lawyer,
that you didn't have a trust and you already didn't wake up. That house was already in your name and you didn't wake up. You didn't have a trust. So how is that going to happen? How is that transfer going to happen?
Oh, it's
This
not.
is the stuff that we don't think about.
It goes to the estate of the person, and then it has to go through legalities where the lawyers get their hands in it. And then there's sibling rivalries and all kind of other stuff that comes into play, and it goes
Yeah,
to probate. It's the
that's
Okay,
probate.
yeah.
Gary know what he's talking about, y'all.
family gets
Yeah, that's the
family
other
gets the
side of probate.
leftovers.
All right, so ultimately, it's the decision of a judge, right? So when it goes to probate, there's a judge that's operating that court case, okay? And that judge is going to decide if that property is going to be transferred into the name of your children, if your children are going to receive that property. That judge could very well decide the contrary. So what has just occurred is you have left it up to a judge. That judge does not know you. That judge does not know your daughter or your son. But you left it up to the judge to be able to make the decision if your kids get your house. That is what we need to avoid. That's what probate is. We don't want to go through probate. There's only one way and one way only, because all of us, we're going to end up in probate. Let's just keep it real. We're all going to end up in probate. If you have an LLC and it owns property, it goes to probate. You got a corporation, it owns property, it goes to probate. You got stuff in your personal name, like a house, car, cash, stocks, it goes to probate. Probate is inevitable. The only way that your family can avoid probate is by way of a trust. That is the only entity. That's what I'm telling you. The trust is the most powerful entity in the world, you guys. Every single country operate trust. A trust entity is in every jurisdiction. A trust entity is the most powerful entity in the entire world. The trust is the only way for you to avoid probate. So let's talk about probate, because I need y'all to know this, right? Because right now, the way that you operating, the way that you got things structured and everything like that, you're going to end up there. You don't want that, right? Because you're going to be doing your kids a disservice, because at the end of the day, we have bought into this lie. The lie that we bought into is, oh, if I transition, my house is automatically going to go to my kids. Please show me where the automatic is, because that is a lie. But yet we really think that, oh, I only have one son, everything's going to him. That's a lie. Your son is going to be fighting tooth and nail. Why? I'll tell you in just a moment why, right? So We're all going to end up in probate, unfortunately, if we have assets in our personal name, right? So this is the process because we didn't even know this. At the end of the day, you are going to have an estate anyways. You heard him. Gary said it. Derek said it. You guys are going to have an estate anyways. But guess what they do? They create the estate when you dead. They literally create a living entity, which is a trust estate, when you die. No. You need to have the trust entity now while you're living. They're not going to tell you that. They're not going to tell you that, right? So this is what happens, right? Let's just say you got the house, you got the car, you got the fat bank account, you got the stocks, you have everything, but it's in your personal name. That checking account in your personal name, that deed in your personal name, that title in your personal name. You didn't wake up tomorrow. Wherever you live, let's just say you live in Texas. The state of Texas is going to create an estate for you in your name. They're going to create the Gary Mitchell estate. Then they're going to put all of your assets in there, everything, every single thing that they could find in your personal name. The pension, the 401k, the stocks, everything. Everything goes into the estate. The estate goes straight to probate court. The estate needs to be represented by a probate attorney. When the estate is inside of probate, inside of the probate court, the first thing that the probate judge does is pay off all of your liabilities. Do you know the type of liabilities that you have at the end of life? So all of your debt, meaning you had credit card debt that you racked up of the wazoo. You had student loan debt that you didn't pay in 40 years. You had unpaid utilities, loans. But the thing that a lot of us don't even think about is bills. Do you know how long you were sitting in the ICU? It only take less than a week. It take about maybe 3 or 4 days for you to have a 6-figure bill. Less than that. Sometimes it take 2. In 48 hours, you already owe the hospital $100,000. Trust me, I told you I was a nurse. I seen it all. And if you don't end up in the hospital, guess what? You was in a nursing home. That's more bills. So now you owe Medicare and Medicaid. So the first thing that the judge does is they're going to pay Medicare. They're going to pay Medicaid. They're going to reimburse the hospital. They're going to reimburse every single bank that you had any type of dealings with since you was 18 years old. They're going to reimburse the student loans, everything, right? They're going to take it out of the cash that you left behind. If you didn't have no cash, guess what they do? They liquidate your assets. So that beautiful house with the white picket fence that you thought your son and daughter was going to receive, the judge decided to sell it because you owe Medicare and Medicaid $120,000. You literally are going to have your kids fighting to keep mom and dad's house. Why? Because you didn't set up a trust. Why? Because you didn't protect your assets. Why? Because you didn't put that house in a trust. Because you decided to buy into the lie that my kids are automatically. Somebody said a will. My last will and testament. Do you know what a will and testament is? It tells you in the name. That's why I'm trying to a will is a wish list. That's your last wishes. That is a wish, you guys. Or do all your wishes come true? I need to know that. Somebody need to come off mute and let me know if all their wishes come true. Do you have a genie in a bottle? Because I need connections. I need some serious connections right now. Okay? I got 3 kids. I'm 35. I need all my wishes to come true. Last time I checked, all your wishes didn't come true. So you created a wish list. And you want that wish list to be carried out. But it's up to the judge. I wish that Tyrone will get my house. Well, guess what? Tyrone is not getting your house because you owe the state of Georgia $100,000. So your house is, and y'all seen it. Why do you think people's property get auctioned off by the county? Probate. Do you know how long probate is? Probate can last 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 18 years. They can drag it on. And even somebody said, who was it, Gary? He said, you gonna have a strange family coming out the woodworks. You gonna have siblings that you haven't seen in 10 years. They want claims. They're going to make claims to your estate. Why? Because you owed them $10,000 when you was living. So, in order to avoid the whole probate process, right? Not only does the judge pay for your liabilities first, but then the probate attorney needs to take fees. And then the probate court has court fees. So you literally telling me that out of my estate that the state of Georgia created for me when I died, that has all of my assets, you telling me that every single creditor was paid, the attorney got paid, the court fees got paid, so all 3 of them had hands in my estate. Whatever is left over is what your children get. Your children get the leftovers. That is what they get. That is that what you want them to get? Because last time I checked, you wanted your children to receive their entire inheritance, but our kids are losing their inheritance. Do you know that our kids are losing their inheritance? They're not getting it. Why? Because we think that our wish list is good enough. The will goes straight into probate. The will cannot own anything. A trust supersedes a will. The trust owns everything. The trust is going to outlive you. So let's talk about what that process looks like. So if you decide, oh, snap, I want to get my affairs in order, right? I want to create my estate right now while I'm living. I'm not going to let the state do it, right? They're going to have hands all over it. So I'm going to create my estate now while I'm living. Then what do? You transfer all of your assets in there. You're going to open up a bank account. You're going to put that $500,000 in there. You're going to transfer all your stocks, your crypto, your jewelry, your car, your house, everything. Everything is going to be owned by the trust, not by you. If you didn't wake up tomorrow, guess what? Nothing happens. Your children get to grieve in peace. They avoid the probate process completely. Your successor takes over. That person that you listed as the person that's going to take over after you, which sometimes is our adult children, sometimes it's someone that we trust. They're going to pick up where you left off and they're going to continue to operate the trust that same day. The trust is going to continue to operate. Your children are going to continue to benefit from the trust. They're going to receive distributions and gifts and money. And that debt that you had at the end of life, right? ICU bills, credit card bills, student loan, all of that dies with you. Did you know that they'll discharge all of that? Why? Because you don't have nothing in your name. They can't find nothing in your name. So what? Discharge, discharge. That's how you need to be set up. But that's going to take you actually getting your affairs in order and creating your estate now. Because tomorrow is not promised. So that's what the probate process looks like. So let's continue on, you guys. The next thing I want to tell you guys about is the wealth building formula. Let's talk about it. Hold on 1 second. All right. So this is the wealth building formula, you guys. This is what I recommend if you guys want to build generational wealth the right way. Okay. So we have 3 pillars here. We have structure, we have credit, and we have invest. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to focus on is structure. So if you're not structured like this, you want to get restructured, right? So if you do not have a trust within your existing structure, then you need to get one so that you can be restructured, okay? So these are the 3 trusts that I recommend. Remember, just think about it. If you have multiple assets, you're going to have multiple trusts within your structure, okay? Now, the 3 trusts that I recommend is a business trust, a private family trust, and a tax-exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So let's talk about it. Let's break it down. Let's start with the first one, which is the business trust, okay? Now, remember I spoke about it earlier where you want to use this type of trust if you're a business owner or an entrepreneur or you are conducting some type of business, okay? Then you want to set up a business trust because with the business trust, like I said, it's 100% liable. Okay. You take 0 liability for anything that happens to that entity or any entities that entity owns and manages. Okay. So with the business trust, you can actually set it up 2 different ways. You can set it up to where it's going to be a holding company. If it is going to be a holding company, then it's going to be non-operational, meaning that it doesn't offer any products or any services to society. What it does is it is solely there to own the other legal entities that offers the products and the services. So that means that the business trust is going to be the owner of the LLCs. It's going to be a shareholder in the corporations so that it will then be able to manage those LLCs and corporations, and it'll take full liability if anything happens, okay? So that's the first way that you can use it. The second way is if you want to start a business. So if you currently don't have a business and you want to start one, then you can go ahead and set up a business trust instead of setting up an LLC, right? Everybody thinks that the LLC is, you know, I don't know. They think that an LLC is like the best type of entity, but it's not, right? But and I'm not saying anything bad about an LLC. I have one, but what I'm saying is that it's just the most popular. But the reason why it's the most popular is because what? Because it is a statutory entity. You go straight to the state in order to set up the LLC, which means that what? The state regulates your LLC. The state can shut down your LLC at any point in time. If you don't do an annual report, guess what? You out of business, right? They could shut you down at any point in time, right? And then you got annual fees. So what? They in your pockets. So that's why LLCs are heavily pushed because they're statutory entities. The state wants you to be a part of the public records and they want to be able to control your business, okay? Versus a business trust, right? Once you set it up, then it can run for 100 years. You don't have to renew it annually. It's non-statutory. So it's not with the Secretary of State. It's not a part of the public records. The state doesn't regulate it or have jurisdiction over it. Okay? So with that being said, with the business trust, right? You're either going to operate as a holding company or you're going to create a business out of it. Okay? Now, remember I told you guys that you want to have the business trust be the owner of the LLC. The LLC is still going to continue its regular operations. The only thing that you're going to do is you're going to amend the articles of organization and you're going to amend your operating agreement. Okay? So those are the two things that you have to change in order to be able to have everything properly structured, okay? So now that the business trust is the owner of the LLC is a pass-through entity. So that means that those funds that come from the LLC, they can pass through straight into the business trust, right? And so let's just say $100,000 came into the LLC. You can do your normal deductions if you want, or you can do a K1 distribution and distribute all of it to the business trust. So now the business trust has $100,000 that they received from the LLC, right? And so what's going to happen is the business trust and the family trust has to pay taxes, okay? It is a for-profit entity, it pays taxes, and it files a 1041. So you file a 1040, and because the business trust and the family trust are separate entities from you, they file a 1041. So one thing that I love about trust is that you get to spend the money first and you're taxed on the leftovers versus how we are taxed personally, right? How we're taxed personally is we get taxes taken out first and we receive the leftovers because we bought into this lie. So what we want to do is when it comes to the business trust, right? It's going to be taxed anywhere between 10% upwards of 37%. So we want to be able to deduct as much as possible. And those are called operating expenses, okay? OPEX. So with the operating expenses, right? Whatever it is that it costs in order to run your organization. So let's just say that you have a vehicle for the business trust, right? Well, with that vehicle, everything that's associated with that vehicle, meaning the insurance, the gas, the maintenance, and the car notes, all of that is 100% tax deductible, right? So now $100,000 came into the business trust. Let's just say it costs us $30,000 in order to run the business trust. That's what we consider administrative or operating expenses, okay? So what you want to do is you're going to write off the $30,000. Now you have $70,000 left. That means that you have to pay taxes on the $70,000, right? But remember, there's one thing that I love about the trust is it's very unique. It's different from every other type of entity. Is that it can do a distribution to the beneficiaries. If it does a distribution to the beneficiaries, that's 100% tax deductible as well. So we had 30,000 in operating expenses, and then we did a distribution of 70,000 from the business trust to the beneficiary. We make the family trust the beneficiary of the business trust. Why? Because if we are business owners and we're entrepreneurs, the money that we need in order to sustain our family is coming from the business. So that's why the beneficiary of the business trust is the family trust, because the family trust is what's going to sustain the business, the family, okay? So the 70,000 that we had that we had to pay taxes on, we did a distribution and we distributed it to the beneficiary. The beneficiary of the business trust is the family trust. So now that money went straight to the family trust, that's 70,000. So on the business trust level, we have a 0% tax liability. That means we pay $0 in taxes, okay? So far the LLC pays 0, the business trust pays 0. So now we have 70,000 that is sitting in the private family trust, okay? So once again, you spend the money first, you're taxed on the leftovers. That needs to be the new jingle in your head. I spend the money first, I'm taxed on the leftovers. I spend the money first, I'm taxed on the leftovers, okay? That's the most important thing. Now, when it comes to the family trust, right, every single thing that that the family trust owns is a part of the operating expenses or anything that has to do with the family, okay? So for example, let's just say that your family trust owns your primary residence, right? Okay, we have a house here, right? So anything dealing with that primary residence. So one, you have a mortgage, you have property taxes, you have maintenance, you have utilities, right? Gas, water, light, right? So those are all things that will be taken out of the expenses of the family trust, okay? Kids' tuition, grocery, anything dealing with the house itself, okay? So, and all of the assets. So for example, another asset we put is our life insurance policies, right? We put all of these different assets, jewelry, furniture, all of this stuff, right? So the family trust is going to cover all of those expenses. So let's just say out of that 70,000, 60 of it went to sustaining the family. So now we have $10,000 that's left over. So we will have to pay 10% on that 10,000, right? Which is $1,000. Or we can do what we call a contribution. So I mentioned it earlier, which is a charitable contribution, okay? So on the family trust level, we would contribute that 10,000 to the tax exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So we wrote off 60, we contributed 10, we're done with the 70. We have a 0% tax liability now. So 0% for the LLC, 0% for the business trust, 0% for the family trust. So now $10,000 was received into the tax exempt trust, okay? We'll talk about that trust in just a moment. The last thing I want to tell you about the family trust is the beneficiaries, right? So the beneficiaries can be human or entities, okay? So typically, the entities, excuse me, not the entities. The humans are our children, right? And so there are children, and then they can also have successors as well. So that means our children, our children's children, our children's children's children, okay? So that's how it goes, and we'll talk about it on the next slide. So now we have, so we're all done with the family trust. So now let's move on to the tax exempt nonprofit trust, okay? So with this trust, right, it is automatically exempt from having to file a 1041 and having to pay federal taxes, okay? So it's automatically exempt from federal tax income. Federal income taxes, okay? Now, the reason why it's automatically exempt from having to file the 1041 is because it's designated as a 508c1a, which is for faith-based organizations, churches, auxiliaries, missionaries, or charitable organizations or educational organizations, okay? So the money that comes into this organization, right? Remember, with the IRS and all government, there is a separation between church and state. So this type of trust is seen as like a church, right? It's a faith-based organization or FBO, right? So it doesn't have to be religious. But because of that separation between church and state, you're not required to have to file to be exempt, right? So normally your nonprofits, they have to file and go down the route of getting a 501c3, right? That's your normal route. But because of the separation between church and state, if you're running a faith-based organization, right, or a charity, then you don't have to file, okay? So as long as the money that's coming in is considered a tithe, a donation, or a gift, it has to be documented as those three things. If it's not, then it's considered income. Anything over $5,000, you're going to be taxed, okay? So, as I gave you guys the example earlier, when we were talking about you donating to your trust or your charity, this is the organization that we was talking about. So in order for you to save on your taxes, you can do a charitable contribution if you're a W-2 employee or 1099, and you can contribute to your charity, and then that'll reduce your taxes significantly, okay? All right, so we are all done talking about structure. Let's move on to the next one, which is credit. So you need to put yourself in a position where you are using OPM, you're using other people's money in order to build wealth. We should not be using our own money in order to build wealth, you guys. We need to do what the banks do, okay? So you can qualify for grants, and you can also build business credit with the trust, okay? So if you are building business credit, it's the same type of credit that you would build with your LLCs and your corporations. So those LLCs and corporations, they build business credit off of their EINs. If you have a trust that has an EIN, it's also going to build credit off of that EIN, okay? So that is you putting yourself in a position to where you're leveraging the bank's money. The bank is leveraging you. The bank is leveraging your money. Whenever you get paid, where does that money go? It goes straight into your checking account. And then Bank of America, Chase, and Wells Fargo, they're out here pimping out your money. They're giving it out, leveraging it, right? For student loans and credit cards and home mortgages and car loans and all this other stuff. They don't really have that cash in the bank. They're leveraging your paycheck, right? So your paycheck literally goes straight to the bank for Bank of America to use before you even get to use it. So if you know that the bank is getting rich off of using your money, then what you need to do, you need to get rich off of using their money. So we need to get out of this mindset of using our own money, using our paycheck for everything, to pay for everything. No, you want to leverage a second credit profile. So you're going to begin to use business credit, because business credit is going to put you in the position to where you can get access to higher lines of credit with those credit cards and those lines of credit and those loans that you can utilize in order to park that money somewhere else. Where are you parking it? You're parking it in income producing assets. You're pimping out the money. Your money is working for you. We have bought into this lie that we have to work for money. You do not have to work for money. You park your money in a place where it works for you. Meaning that you park it into a house, and then that money is going out to work. Every single dollar is going out to work and is bringing back 25 cents, 50 cents, 70 cents. That's the position that you need to put yourself in. That's the position that the trust can put yourself in. By parking that money or deploying those funds and allocating them in the right way. So now let's move on to the next one, which is invest. So when it comes to different investments, These are the two assets that I recommend. I recommend an index universal life insurance policy, and I recommend real estate. I have both, okay? So I'm only telling you things, everything that you see on here is what I do. And so I'm only telling you things that I've actually done, okay? And that I do today. So let's talk about it, because a lot of people, they think that life insurance is supposed to be used when they are dead. When in all actuality, life insurance is supposed to be utilized when you are living. That's why it's called life insurance, not death insurance. You're supposed to be utilizing it now. There's so many living benefits to life insurance. So my favorite policy, there's a lot of different policies, guys. One thing about life insurance is that it has to be structured the right way, okay? Now, with the policies, right? My favorite policy out of all the types of policies is an index universal life insurance policy. I have 5. Okay? All 5 of my policies are owned by my trust. All 5 policies, the premiums are paid by my trust. All 5 policies, the death benefit, the beneficiary is my trust. That is how you guys need to be structured, to where the trust is the owner, the payer, and the beneficiary of the life insurance policies. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. I'm getting ahead of myself because I just like to do this. So let me break down my favorite policy. It's called an IUL, Index Universal Life. That's what you see on the screen, okay? So shorten it out, IUL, Index Universal Life Insurance Policy, okay? Remember, I told you there's a lot of living benefits. What are the living benefits? The money that's inside of your policy, because you're paying a premium. Let's just say you pay $100 a month. That money is going to be growing tax-free. So they do not tax it like how your 401k is getting taxed, how your Roth IRA is getting taxed, your stocks, all this stuff. They do not tax it. Okay, so it's tax, so your money is growing tax-free, right? It's protected. So the government, so if you are going to be sued, guess what? If I'm being sued, they can't go after my IUL policy. They could take the house, the car, and the cash in the bank account, but they can't go after my policy and the money that I have inside my policy. So it's protected, which is beautiful, right? So the next thing is that it has a death benefit. So that means that if I didn't wake up tomorrow, there's a death benefit associated with it that's going to be paid to my beneficiary. Let's just say it's $1 million. If I didn't wake up tomorrow, the $1 million is going to go straight to my beneficiary. If my beneficiary is the trust, it's going to go straight to the trust. The next thing is that it has cash value. So cash value is where it's where there's a separate account, and in that separate account, all of the money that you've been paying for your premiums, remember you paid $100 a month, right? $20 is going straight to the insurance company. That's the cost of doing insurance, right? Of having insurance, of doing business, right? The other $80, that $80 is going straight into your cash value. And now that $80 is going to start to compound and stack on each other. And why is it going to compound? It's going to earn compound interest. How? The way that it earns compound interest is because this policy mirrors an index. That's why you see the word index in the name of the policy. What is an index? Okay, an index it's a part of the stock market. So the stock market has indices. These indices are the NASDAQ, the Dow Jones, and the S&P 500. The S&P 500 stands for Standard & Poor's 500, which is the top 500 companies in the United States of America. That's your Apple, your Google, your Amazon, your Facebook, your Berkshire, your IBMs, your this, your that. So it tracks those top 500 companies. So typically, the S&P 500 is averaging 8 to 10% a year, which means that whatever the S&P 500 does, the insurance company is going to match that, and they're going to give you the same return. So it mirrors the market. So your money is not inside of the stock market, just like how it is when you are invested with your brokerage account. So you take zero risk. If the stock market crashes tomorrow, your money is not going anywhere. It's safe because it was never invested in the stock market. It mirrors the stock market. So if the stock market is doing 9%, then guess what? The insurance company is going to match that 9% and give you 9% returns on your cash value. So what you want to do is you want to flow as much money as you can into your cash value. So majority of your money should be housed inside of your IUL. It's safer than having that money sit in the bank. At the end of the day, if you got 400,000 or 500,000 in the bank only is going to insure 250K. So if anything happens, you at a loss already. You already upside down. So majority of your money, your wealth needs to be held in these IUL policies. Okay? It's extremely powerful, and I'll show you why in just a moment. So remember, I'm sorry I'm coughing all over you guys. I'm trying to get rid of something. I got like a little cold, a little cough, a little this, a little that. So, so when it comes to the IULs, right, what you want to do is the strategy is money that you have coming into your organization, right, into your trust. That money, before you use it to go pay the mortgage, pay the car note, pay the kids' tuition, buy groceries, right? Before you use that money, what you want to do is you want to funnel that money into your IUL policy. Because now your cash value is going to go up. Let's just say $5,000 just came into the trust, right? That $5,000, before you go pay your mortgage and put gas in the car, what you need to do is you need to funnel that $5,000 into your IUL. Your cash value goes up by $5,000. That $5,000 that's in your cash value, it's going to mirror the market, and it's going to earn the 9, the 10, the 11%. Right? But remember, you got to use part of that $5,000 to pay your mortgage, or to pay the utilities, or the light's going to get cut off. So what you're going to do is you're going to borrow from the life insurance company. So meaning that 5,000, right? Your 5,000 is inside of your policy, in your cash value, and it's working and it's earning compound interest. But you need to borrow some money from the life insurance company. So you're going to request a loan. Typically it's not the whole thing. So let's just say it's 4,800. You're going to request a loan for 4,800, right? So the life insurance company, right, they see your policy as an asset. And so they're going to look at your cash value. They're going to be like, yeah, Brian has $5,000. So we're going to lend him the 4,800. So they do a direct deposit and they send the 4,800 to your account. Your 5,000 is still sitting in there working, earning compound interest. They just deposited 4,800 for you to be able to use. That loan does not need to be paid back. Why? Because it's going to automatically be deducted from the death benefit. So that is how you're going to have your money working for you, parked in a place where it's earning compound interest. And then once you get the direct deposit for 4,800, at that point, you are able to pay for the mortgage, the light, the water bill, the gasoline, and everything you need to pay for. So that's the IUL. So now let's talk about real estate, you guys. Because real estate is my favorite thing. Remember, I told you guys that that I started in real estate. I'm a real estate investor. So when it comes to real estate, a trust can own property. A trust can get a mortgage. A trust can can manage, can do anything, right? With real estate. So what you want to do is you want to put yourself in a position to where the trust is sustaining itself. And so the way that you're going to do that is by building up a real estate portfolio so that the trust is able to get income from this income producing asset that you can then deploy it somewhere else, right? So let's just say that you are gonna go ahead and buy a duplex. All right. So we want to go ahead and buy this duplex. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna get a DSCR loan under the trust. Okay, so the trust obviously needs to qualify for a mortgage. Okay, and so you're gonna provide bank statements and you're going to qualify for a DSCR, right? A DSCR is debt service coverage ratio. That is a mortgage loan for investment properties, okay? So remember, we're buying a duplex. That's an investment property, okay? So now the DSCR is going to give you 80%. 80% of the purchase price. So we're buying this duplex, we get a mortgage, they're giving us 80%, so we have another 20%, which is the down payment. How are we going to get this 20%? Well, remember, previously I told you OPM, other people's money. So what you're going to do is you're going to build business credit. You're going to get a credit card or a line of credit. So let's just say you had already qualified for a credit card for $50,000. What you're going to do is you're going to strip that credit card. So you're going to take out that $50,000 from that credit card. So now you got $50,000 liquid cash. The first thing that you're going to do with that $50,000 liquid cash is you're going to funnel it into your IUL policy. That $50,000 is going to go straight into your cash value. So now your cash value went up by $50,000. It's obviously going to earn compound interest. It's going to mirror the market. It's going to earn 9, 10, 11%. So you are already putting that $50,000 to work inside of the IUL policy. All right. So now you need that $50,000 in order to use it as a down payment for the real estate. So what you're going to do is you're going to request a loan from the insurance carrier. That money comes from their bank account. That money comes from their reserves. So they're going to see that you have the cash value as collateral, and they're going to lend you $49,000. So that money, that 49,000 just went direct deposit back into your trust fund account. So now you have the 49,000 available to be used for the down payment. So now you went and purchased the real estate. So you use 80% with the DSCR, 20% with the business credit, and that money was put into the IUL, borrowed out, and now put into the real estate. So now that 50,000 that you use from the credit card, you've parked it in two places. You parked it in the IUL and you parked it in the real estate. Both of them are producing interest and income. So now you bought this duplex. It's the first of the month. They're paying you rent. So the question is, where does the rent money go first? I need to know, where does the rent money go?
Policy.
Goes to
Exactly.
pay off the
Into the- in the-
DSCR loan.
Yeah, who said that? Who said the policy?
Yeah, no, oh, I didn't say it.
Okay, yeah,
Going
and I
to the
see it.
faith-based organization, your faith-based ministry trust.
Uh-huh.
That's where the money goes, right? Where you get it from your renter, it goes into the faith-based.
I mean, so the first things first, the property is owned by the trust, whatever trust you want, the business trust, the family trust, or the ministry
Tax
trust.
exempt. Mhm.
Okay. So now, before that money goes into the trust, right? That money, well, no, before that money is deployed anywhere else, right? So the money goes straight into the trust, right? But before the trust goes and pay the mortgage, before the trust goes and pay maintenance, utilities, that money is going to be funneled into the IUL. So they said it. You guys said it. You guys said the policy. That rent money, it's the first of the month. All right, you got what? $6,000 in rent income, right? That's $6,000. Before it goes anywhere else, it goes straight into the IUL policy. Now your cash value went up by 6,000, and now you're going to be earning compound interest off that 6,000. Now you're going to go ahead and borrow that 6,000 out. Let's just say it's 5,800. Now that 5,800 is going to be deployed to pay back the credit card, to cover the mortgage, and then whatever's left over sits inside of the trust for operating expenses. That is how you're going to begin to build wealth. That is how you're going to begin to build a portfolio for the trust so that the trust can sustain itself. This is what generational wealth looks like. All right, so what you need to do is you need to put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. That is extremely, extremely powerful. I'm going to say it again. Put yourself in a position to where you own nothing but control everything. Because that is what we're describing, which is stewardship. You being a good steward of the assets that you've acquired, right? You being a good steward of the legacy versus how you're operating now. The way that you're operating now is in ownership. So you are so proud to be the owner of your house, right? That's what we bought into the lies, right? The lies of the house with the white picket fence and the dog, right? And so so everything that we do out here in society is with our personal name, right? And so we are brainwashed to think that, that we are proud owners of the properties, right? But that's not what you want, because at the end of the day, what's happening is that you guys, right? At the end of the day, that house is always going to be there, meaning that if you didn't wake up tomorrow, that house is still going to be there. That house is going to outlive you. So in all actuality, what you wanted was control over the house while you were living. You didn't want ownership. You thought you wanted ownership. What you wanted was full control over that property while you was living, while you was here on earth. And you received that by setting up a trust, by being the trustee of a trust, and by controlling that house while it was in the trust. Okay? So you need to be operating in stewardship versus ownership. All right? That's the first thing. Now, one question that we never ask ourselves is, how am I going to transfer this wealth? Let me hear it, guys. Have any of you guys ever asked yourself, how am I going to transfer the wealth that I'm creating right now? Anybody? Anybody ever asked themselves this question? Because we are out here working our 9 to 5s. We're out here investing in our 401ks. We're out here doing it. We're making money, right? And so we're all consumed with making the cash, right? And we literally walking around here talking about we building generational wealth. But yet we don't have none of the tools in order to build generational wealth. So none of us ever asked ourselves, how am I going to transfer this wealth, all this money that I'm making?
No, that's not true.
So this is how
You
you
have to-
transfer wealth. The way that you're going to transfer the wealth is, one, it's going to require you to set up your trust estate. Okay, so you have to set up your estate while you're living. Now, your every single trust, when you set it up, it's going to create trust certificate units. So the abbreviated version of that is TCUs, right? TCUs are trust certificate units. Those are the same thing as stock certificates. So you know how stock certificates represent ownership in a corporation? Well, TCUs represents beneficial interest in a trust, because a trust is a living entity and it cannot be owned by anybody. It can only be controlled and people can benefit from it. It can't be owned. We don't use those terms, own. Okay? It's beneficial interest. It's not ownership, it's beneficial interest. All right? So, when your trust is established, it's going to generate 100 trust certificates. Those 100 trust certificates, you are going to distribute them to the people that you want to inherit assets from the trust. Those people are called beneficiaries, okay? So you're going to have them go ahead and you're going to have them go ahead and receive trust certificate units, okay? So let's just say I'm one of your beneficiaries and you just gave me 20 units. That means I have 20% of beneficial interest in your trust. That means that if your trust is worth $1 million and the trust was terminated or dissolved today, I would literally get $200,000 out of that $1 million. So that's what beneficial interest is. It's just like ownership interest. It just shows you how much percentage you have based off of how many TCUs you have. All right. So the next thing is preservation of wealth, you guys. So that's another thing that we've never asked ourselves. How am I going to preserve this money, right? So with that being said, how many times have we seen it to where famous families, to where athletes, celebrities, actors, actresses, all of these people, right? To where they get all this money and they either blow it or it doesn't even last the second or third generation. How many times have we seen it, right? And so The reason why that happened is because they didn't have a trust within their structure. That's first and foremost. The second thing is because they didn't have the tools for preservation. There's two tools that you need in order to preserve wealth. The first tool is the trust estate. That's the first tool, okay? The second tool is the life insurance policies. So, with your trust has insurance on everything. It has insurance on the cash in the bank account with the FDIC. It has insurance on the cars with the automobile insurance. It has insurance on the house with the homeowner's insurance. And so the trust also needs to insure human assets. The human assets are you and the beneficiaries. So if you are the trustee, the trust is going to take out a life insurance policy on you and all of the other trustees and all of the beneficiaries and all of the future beneficiaries. Why? Because you are the most important person to the trust, right? You're the one that's running the show on a day-to-day basis. So if anything happens to you, the trust is going to be devastated, which means that the trust is suffering a loss, which means that the trust needs to be compensated for that loss, which means that that death benefit goes straight to the trust. So if you didn't wake up tomorrow and you have a $2 million death benefit, that $2 million is going straight to the trust and replenishing the trust. That is extremely, extremely powerful, right? That is how you begin the practices of preservation of wealth, because the trust is going to take out a policy on you, on every single trustee and every single beneficiary and every single future beneficiary. That's how we get the term trust fund baby. Because if you have a beneficiary that's born into the trust, the first thing that happens is that trustee takes out a life insurance policy on that baby. Right? And remember, the trust is the owner, the payer. So the trust is going to be paying the premiums for that life insurance policy for that baby. The trust is going to be the owner of that life insurance policy for that trust fund baby. The trust is going to be the beneficiary of that life insurance policy for that baby. And that baby is going to be the insured, right? So their life is insured, okay? All right, so now the trust is paying $100 a month, right? It's compounding. Why? Because it's mirroring the market. Why? Because it's an index universal life insurance policy. So it mirrors the market, right? Fast forward into the future. Let's just say that this trust fund baby is 18 years old. What happens, right? Well, at 18, they need a car, they need a house, they got college tuition, books, they got everything, right? So let's just say that they want to go and get their first car. They could easily go down to the dealership, pull their credit, get into an expensive car note, paying $1,000 a month for a $30,000 car. Or because they are a beneficiary in a trust estate, they can go to the estate. They can go straight to the trust and they can request a loan for $30,000 so they can buy their car. So that's one of the beautiful things about a trust, is that a trust can give loans to the trustees and beneficiaries. The trust can also receive loans from the trustees and beneficiaries, which means that you want to be moving money around inside of the trust as a loan, because loans are tax-free. You do not pay taxes on loans. Okay? So now what happens is the trustee is going to cut a check for $30,000 and hand it to the beneficiary. That trust fund baby is going to go to the dealership, buy their car cash. And instead of them paying the dealership $1,000 a month, they're going to start to pay the trust $300 a month. So now it's a win-win situation, because the trust is getting a little bit of income from that $30,000 loan. Let's just say a year into the future, that beneficiary decides to default. They don't want to pay the trust no more. That's completely fine because the money did not come from the trust fund. The money actually originated from the life insurance policy of that trust fund, baby. So what ended up happening was the trustee, once they received a loan request from that beneficiary, they went and contacted the insurance carrier and requested a loan for $30,000. That money originated from the life insurance company's reserves, from their money from their bank account. They did a direct deposit into the trust fund account for $30,000, and the trustee wrote a check to the beneficiary for $30,000. So because that loan did not originate from the trust fund, but from their IUL policy, it doesn't need to be paid back, so it was a risk-free loan. Because it was a risk-free loan, that means that that money, that $30,000 is going to be deducted from the death benefit. So when that beneficiary transitions, that death benefit is going straight into the trust. That is how you're going to begin to preserve wealth, you guys. Why? Because the trust fund is constantly replenished every single time somebody transitions from the trust. That's why I'm telling you, this is the generation in generational wealth. If you don't have a trust, if you don't have properly structured insurance policies that are directly owned by the trust, there is no way for you to secure a legacy and no way for you to build generational wealth that's actually going to last generations. Your kids are going to blow the dough, I promise you. If you don't have these rules and regulations in place, if you are not properly structured, if you don't have your affairs in order. So these are the books that I recommend. I recommend What Would the Rockefellers Do? That is a really good book on the connection between a trust and life insurance policies. It's exactly what I was telling you, okay? I do it. A lot of other people do it, okay? So the next thing is The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2. So that's a really good book that teaches on trusteeship. Trusteeship is so important. The next one is Family Wealth, which teaches you how to run your family like a business. That's what we all need to be doing. Running our family like a business. That's what it is, right? You are the CEO of your family. Your spouse is the CFO of your family. Your children are secretaries. Run your family like a business organization. So it's called a family office. And then the last book that I recommend is The Complete Book of Trust, which teaches you about the different types of trust. Remember, I told you there's hundreds of different types of trust. You want the best trust for you, for your family, for your business, okay? And take action on the information that I shared with you guys tonight because it is so, so, so powerful. So I want to actually show you a quick little video of one of the people that took action on the information we shared tonight.
Well, kudos to you all. Again, Christina, it's been a wonderful experience. I've been looking at your videos on YouTube for a while. And, you know, there are a number of people offering trust these days. And, you know, I guess that's the big thing, you know, don't own anything, control everything. That kind of, I didn't say it correctly, but that is the sentiment. And so it seems like the playing field is being leveled now from the rich and people who weren't privy to this information. So thank you for being such a great asset to a community that didn't have this information. And you made it so simple. Thank you for the recordings. Thank you for the step-by-step instructions, things that we can go back and look at. So we do appreciate you. And thank you, Mondo. That was a great explanation of infinite banking. I know a number of people are talking about that, but they make it so complex. And his presentation was nice and succinct and very informative. So this has been an overall great experience. I definitely will recommend you to others.
All right. So, like I said, take action on the information that I share with you guys tonight, because it could be your new way of doing business. It could be your new way of making profit. It could be a new way of solving all your problems, dealing with protecting your assets, managing your assets, saving money on taxes, right? On the whole operation of the whatever structure that you have right now. So you need to treat this like a big business. You need to treat this like a Facebook and like an Amazon. You don't need to be treating this like no little small mom and pop shop, because this is not what that is, okay? Like, this is your legacy that we're talking about. Your legacy. People 9, 10 generations down is going to know who you are. Why? Because you're the generational curse breaker that decided one day that you was going to create an estate for your family, and that you was going to secure their financial future, and that you was going to put rules and regulations in place so that the money could last generations and be protected and not taken away by random people or by the government. You are the generational curse breaker. Do you know why I know that? Because I am the generational curse breaker in my family. So I only attract generational curse breakers to this webinar. Okay? So, like I said, our kids, they can't inherit our jobs. They can't inherit our 9 to 5s. But what they can inherit is our estate. Somebody, you see somebody writing on my screen here? Hold up, I'm about to get rowdy. So they can inherit our estate. So what we need to do is change the trajectory of our kids' lives and setting them up for a fruitful financial future, where they're actually going to receive their inheritance and it's not going to be stolen. Let's just be real. Stolen. Taken away. Right? So now your children are going to be raised as trustees, because they're a part of a trust organization, versus however you was going to randomly be, go to college and you're on your own. You'll learn about budgeting. You'll get some tips from Dave Ramsey and whoever else. No. Because you got structured, you broke the chains in your family, and now your children and their children are going to be beneficiaries and trustees. It's super powerful. I can't even say nothing else about it. So let's work together, you guys. I do have a course. I will show you what the course looks like. The course is so that you guys can learn trusteeship, and so that you guys can learn how to set up these trusts that I'm talking about. Remember, I gave you a framework, which is a bulletproof trust is express, complex, discretionary, non-statutory, and irrevocable. That's it. So in my course, it comes with 43 video modules. You get access to the 3 trusts that I was speaking about in the structure: the business trust, the family trust, and the nonprofit. You get lifetime access to the course. So you're going to watch the modules, you're going to download the templates, okay? And then you're going to set up your trust structure, okay? So this is do it yourself. It's very thorough. You also get access to resources and ebooks. So the resources is everything that you need in order to operate a trust. You need to have board meetings, we give it to you. You need to open up a bank account, we give it to you. You need a quick claim deed, we give it to you. You need a purchase agreement, we give it to you. Everything is inside of the resource. You need to file taxes, there it is. The resource has everything that you need. We also have ebooks available for you. So the books that I mentioned on the previous page, those books are available in electronic version inside of the course. Some of those books, if you try to look them up on Amazon, they're over $800. You also get access to a private Facebook community. So in the Facebook community, we have hundreds and hundreds of trustees, okay? So you get to, we're building a community here, okay? Of wealthy trustees. So you get access to like-minded individuals that have already gone through the process. They've been operating their trust for years. Some of these individuals are in your city, in your state. You also get access to our Telegram chat. They're blowing up the chat every single day. We have master classes every other week where we have educators who come in and teach you about real estate. They teach you about taxes, business. So the course is only $997, lifetime access, and it's do it yourself at your own pace. The next option is done with you. The done with you option is where we're going to do it in a workshop style setting. The workshop is next week, okay? June 2nd to the 6th. So you get 5 group Zoom calls. So just like how we on a Zoom call right now, and we're all here as a group, we're going to do it together, live, in the workshop. So we're going to meet Monday through Friday next week. We're going to meet from 11 to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The workshops are every month. So if you're not able to meet, if you're not able to do it next week, then you'll do it in July or August or September. But you get lifetime access to every single workshop. So you can jump in and out of the workshops. So on Monday, we focus solely on the business trust. I break down every single paragraph of the trust. That trust is over 50 pages. So once I break down every single paragraph, and when I tell you I'm thorough, I'm thorough. Once I break down every single page, the reason why I do that is so that you can understand the contents of the trust. I need you to know what's inside of the trust so that you can efficiently and effectively operate the trust. The last thing that you want is for you to have a stack of papers and not know what to do with it. I told you the trust is the most powerful entity in this world. Believe me. You need to know what's inside of it. You need to know how to properly operate it. Now, after we go through what's inside of the business trust and how to set it up, I open up the floor for Q&A. On Tuesday, we focus on the family trust. So we break down every single paragraph, and then I open up the floor for Q&A, and I answer every single question that you have before we get off the Zoom call. On Wednesday, we focus on the nonprofit. So I break down every single paragraph of the nonprofit, the bylaws. And then I show you how to get the EIN for the tax exempt organization. And then I show you how to become an ordained minister if you're going to operate it as a ministry. And then we open up the floor for Q&A. It is extremely powerful to be in that environment with like-minded individuals because you have people who are asking questions that you didn't even know you wanted to know. It is so powerful. On Thursday, we focus on getting the EIN for the business. Then I show you how to have a board meeting. I show you the steps in order to get a bank account and what the banking procedures are. Then I show you how to fill out a promissory note so that you can move money in and out of the trust as a loan tax-free. And then one of our educators comes in and teaches you about business credit and business funding. And then the last day is Friday. So Thursday we do Q&A with the educator and with myself. And then on Friday, it's all about asset protection. So I teach you guys step by step how to transfer your assets. So for your property, we are going to do the quit claim deed together. I'll show you how to get your legal description, how to find your deed, and where to record it. Then we do the vehicles. So we actually do the bill of sale to transfer your title and how to submit it to the DMV. And then we focus on the business. So we do the business purchase agreement so that you can document that you're no longer liable for the business. And then we go through the steps to fill out the articles of organization, the amendment, so that you can amend it, remove your name, add the trust. And then the last thing, I have one of our educators who comes in and teaches you about the life insurance policies. So you can start to build that generational wealth the right way. That's actually going to preserve your wealth. So she's going to come in and she's going to teach you how to use the policies, how to properly structure them, right? They got to be structured the right way. And how to use it to eliminate debt and how to build wealth with the policies. It's extremely powerful. And then we dive into Q&A. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. So we're meeting Monday through Fridays, just like being at university, okay? Monday through Friday, 11 to 2. And we give you all of the templates, resources, trainings, everything is recorded. And you get lifetime access. And you still get access to the course, resources, ebooks, Facebook community, Telegram chat. But with the workshop, you get accountability, right? You get that sense of security to know that everything's done the right way because I'm showing you how to do it. And then after the workshop, you can book a call with me so I can double check your trust indentures so we could cross the T's and dot the I's. So the workshop is only $2,500. The last option is do it one-on-one, and those are for people who want private sessions. So that means you don't want to do it as a group where there's 50 people on the call. You want to do it private one-on-one, which is me and you. And so me and my team, we set up your trust, your EINs, help you transfer all of your assets. So typically those are for people who have multiple assets, multiple businesses, or they just don't want to do it themselves. They need the support. They need to customize the trust specifically for their structure. And so you still get access to the workshop and the course, the community, the Telegram chat, resources, ebooks, everything, right? But you get that sense of security to know that everything was done for you. And so the private sessions are only $10,000. So you just have to choose whichever one works best for you, whichever one that you want to do. And you just have to go to the website, wealthytrustee.com. You can send us an email. You can visit us on social media. You can also call the community number. And because the workshop is next week, I want to give you the ability to not have any excuse of why you are not readily available to get started with your legacy. So you guys can enjoy 50% off up until the day of the workshop. So all you have to do is go to the website that you see on the screen, click on the workshop, put TRUST50 as the discount code, and enroll. So I want to show you what the actual course looks like. And then I want to show you what, hold on. What a trust looks like. So this is the actual course. So this is what you get access to when you enroll. So the first thing that you see after the introduction is trust entities. So we break down everything about a trust, right? So we teach you what a trust is, who the different parties are, right? The benefits, the different types of trust. Then we dive into the ministry trust. Then we dive into the family trust. So we break down all the paragraphs. We show you how to get the EINs. We do the same thing for the business trust. Then we go into tax strategies and we show you how to operate tax exempt. And then we get into asset protection. So you take an inventory of your assets. You have to know what assets you have before you decide to transfer your assets. Then we show you how to create a bank account, a brokerage account, how to transfer your house, your car, your policies, your businesses, how to have board meetings. Then we go into wealth creation. We teach you how to build credit, how to invest in the stock market with index funds, and how to do the infinite banking system with the life insurance policies. Then we go into wealth preservation and we teach you what a family crest is for your family trust. And then lastly is the resources that I told you about and the ebooks that I told you about. So this is an example of one of our trust documents. So this is an indenture. And so everything that you see in red is what you're going to be filling out and customizing, okay? These are all of the provisions, or like I like to call them rules, regulations, terms, conditions, whatever you want to call it, right? But that is what makes it bulletproof, right? That's what is going to hold up in court. That is what makes it impenetrable, right? Whatever you have inside of the contract, which is super important. So with that being said, we're all done for tonight, you guys. So let me know if you have any questions based off of any of the information that I shared. You guys can come off mute, raise your hand. I see Angie has her hand open.
Hi, Christina. How are you? Hello.
Wonderful.
I have a question. I'm a previous student. I've been trying to get it together. I'm at the part where I was starting to get leeway with Ally Bank. Um, They are asking me for my full trust document. I sent them the certificate of trust. I sent them all the notary pages, what they asked for in the application. But they're saying that that's not enough. It's out of the numbers are out of order and they want the full document. And I told them they're not supposed to get the full document. And they told me
That's a good question.
they told me it was that or nothing. So that's one. What do I do? Just
Yeah.
try somewhere else?
Unfortunately, yeah. So Ally does not ask for the trust documents. But I guess maybe because, unless they see that there's like a red flag or maybe certain verbiage that they don't agree with, or maybe the name or something like that. So that's why they ask you so that they can verify before they approve your account. So they're not going to give you an account if you don't give them the entire trust. The only other way that you can do it is by escalating it and being transferred to their legal department to let them know that they're violating your privacy rights by asking for the entire indenture. So you could go down that route, but it's just easier to just go to another bank versus going down that route of going back and forth with the legal department. So you have, two options there, but it's the easiest thing is to go to another bank and then for you to open up an account over there at another bank.
And you suggested Truist because you said those were the two that we thought would be the easiest ones to.
Truist is a good one. Truist is a good one. Navy Federal is a good one.
Okay.
They don't
Okay.
ask,
And,
they don't ask for your trust
and
documents. I always
okay.
tell people stay away from Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase because they
Mm-hmm.
do. But some of our community members, they still go with them. and they're fine. So like I talked to one of our community members today. He went to Wells Fargo last week.
I do have an account with Wells Fargo and also Chase, and they did.
They're gonna ask you for your trust documents. So I always tell people stick with smaller community banks or stick with credit unions.
Okay.
Good to know. Good to
And
know.
I have another issue. So me and my grantor, we are in two different states. So we did our EIN together over the phone. So the business trust, somehow we filed that up. We used her social security number, but I think she put her name in, well, she obviously put her name instead of
As the
my name.
trustee.
So when the
Okay.
trust came back, yeah, when it came back, it had her name as the trustee. So
Oh,
I sent in the form, I think it's 8822B or something like that. So I used that form to try to get it corrected. And I just got back letters from them. And I even called and talked to them because they didn't change it. They said that the trustee is the responsible party and that social security number has to be the social security number on file. So since my social security number is not on file and hers is, that's why her name is there. And they're not going to change it over unless I provide my social security number. So my question now is, do I delete it somehow and start all over? And then do I do that? Can I white out the EIN number on my trust certificate so we don't have to try to get it notarized again because it's back and forth between the two states? Or
You already got it notarized, right?
yeah, we did it. We did everything. We thought we were finalized. And even if Ally or any bank asked me for my EIN letter, it's gonna have her name as the TTEE.
Okay, but that's fine though, because you can change trustees at any point in time. You can have a new trustee tomorrow, but that's still the EIN number. So
But
you can
if I
still
want to be the trustee, I gotta put my social security number down, right? That's what they're telling me.
so
I can do it. I just gotta give them my social security. But I thought the whole point was me not
you
under
no,
my
no,
social
no,
security number.
no. So on the application, it asks for a responsible party, which is the grantor, and it asks for the trustee. So you guys did you put your name anywhere on the application?
Um, I think not. She did.
Okay,
Remember,
that's
she
the
did it.
problem. Okay, so it was filled out the wrong way. So I would tell you to cancel that EIN and create a new one and fill it out the right way.
And then get it re-notarized.
No, you don't have to get it renotarized. You're getting a new EIN for an already existing legal entity.
So on the certificate of trust, I just white out the old EIN number and right hand write it in.
You can create a new certificate, and it only needs to be notarized by you because it is an
An
updated version.
amended, amend.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. Oh, that's good. Okay, we could fix that. Okay. And then I have one more question. You didn't really get into it today with other new group, but the PAM account, pay yourself first, I think, or something like that. I wanted to know what is the withdrawal procedure when you're ready to draw money out. What do you have to do, and how long does it
Yeah.
normally take?
So you log in and you go to transactions and you press withdraw and then you put in how much you want, and you have to do two-step verification with your email address. So they're going to send you a special code and then you press withdraw. So you just have to make sure that you don't have any open trades. If you have open trades, then you can't automatically withdraw. You have to go down the manual route where you have to send an email and they'll do it for you. So we don't recommend that you do withdrawals while you have an open trade because it's gonna put you at a position to where you are you're taking a loss for no reason because you're gonna automatically close that trade. So that's what it is. So you can withdraw 24/7 whenever you want. As long as you don't have an open trade. And if you do have an open trade, you just got to contact the brokerage.
Okay, well, I probably need to talk to you privately regarding that because the trader was doing it for me, so I don't even have access to anything because I was one of the people that was getting it done. Um,
Okay,
yeah, so
so
I don't know how to, I don't know what to do.
okay, I'm gonna give you a ring.
Okay. You need anything from me? Cause I talked to your assistant yesterday because I was trying to set an appointment up with you, but she told me you were having the session tonight, and also got me scheduled for the class next week. So, did you need anything from me?
No,
I could private send you my number over
I
the.
have I have I have it in
You
here.
got my information. Okay. All right. All right. Well, continue with the rest of the class. Thank you so much. And I feel better about the EIN situation. So that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome, Angie. Thank you.
Hmm.
Next we have Steve.
Hi, Christina.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
How you doing? You remember me from your class?
Uh-huh, always.
Yeah, I was telling you that my mom was a nurse as well. We talked. Uh, well, retired nurse now. She's old. She's well up in age now, so she's never been doing any nursing
That's
anymore.
beautiful.
But listen,
I
I am
I
at the
I love my nurses. It's a very beautiful career.
yeah, yeah. But she wanted me to get into it, but and then my father was a police officer, so I didn't go either direction. So
Oh
I chose
Lord,
something different. I chose
that's
something
a
different.
nice combo. You know
Yeah, it is.
there's a urban legend that nurses always end up with police officers.
That's interesting. It just
I
happened to
promise
happen, you know, in my family. So
I promise you.
I wonder why. I wonder why.
I
I wonder
don't.
why.
I have no clue either. I have no clue. It's an urban
Yeah,
legend.
yeah. Hey, well, listen, I'm at the point I need for you to look over my trust because I got everything filled out, EIN, my number, you know, EIN numbers, the business, the faith base, and also the family. So I'm ready to go to the next level. Are you still notarizing, or you still
Um,
doing notary,
not
or
un
what?
not unless you need me to. So I mean,
Okay,
like it depends. Like if it's absolutely 100% necessary. So
that's fine.
yeah, yeah. So you just let me know, but we gotta put you on the calendar. So do you have my calendar link? It should be in the chat, and then we could book the call so I can review all your documents.
Yeah, I believe I have it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
that'll be fine.
Yeah, and
I'll get that.
yeah, it's in the chat. So you just click on it and then book the call and then we'll hop on Zoom and you can share your screen and show me everything. Or if you want to email it to me and I'll double check everything. I'm very thorough. There
Yeah,
there's never
I can
there's
email too.
never been there's never been an indenture that I double checked
Yeah.
that I didn't find
Oh,
something.
really? Oh, okay. Maybe it'd probably be easier. I just email it to you.
Yeah, so my email, Angela, she's gonna put inside of the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, she just put it in there.
Oh, I see
You
it.
see?
Okay, fantastic. Yep. Yep. Okay. I'll just email it over. And just one other question. If a person has property in another state, can they put that in their nonprofit?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
the nonprofit can operate in the whole US.
Okay. No
Yeah.
problem doing that. And is it advisable just to have all your trust, three trusts as the beneficiary,
As the beneficiary of the nonprofit,
or all three, the business trust, the family, and also the nonprofit? Would that make
as
sense to have them all?
so you're gonna list all of the trusts as beneficiaries and no children, like no children, no humans? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, or with the family, that should be the children. The children should be beneficiaries.
Yeah, so it should be that the beneficiary of the business trust and the ministry is the family, and the beneficiary of the family are the kids.
Okay, good structure. Okay. Well, I'll be sending that over to you. Great talking with you again, and thank you for your information. I watch your information. I go through it just about every day, so it's very powerful, very powerful. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you too so much. So thank you for being a part of the community. Thank you for always adding value. So if you're able to
Yeah.
hop into the workshop next week, we would love to see you. And I'll wait for your email.
Okay. Thanks again. Bye bye.
You're welcome. Bye. All right, next we have Kiana. Hey, Kiana.
Hello, I just have a couple quick questions.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
okay, so the trust address. I own a home. Should it be my home address or should I get a PO box?
You should get a virtual address. We use a company called iPostal One. So that's something that we, teach you. And you should never have the trust address be the same address that you're associated with. You can use a PO box, but so for example, the bank doesn't accept PO boxes. So then what address are you going to use? The IRS doesn't accept PO boxes. So then what address are you going to use? So that's why we tell you stay away from the PO box, because not every institution accepts PO boxes.
Oh, okay, okay. And then the grantor and the trustee, you said they can or cannot be the same person.
It depends on the type of trust. If you're doing revocable, they can. If you're doing irrevocable, they cannot. We only assist you with irrevocable for full asset protection, so they cannot be the same person with the ones that we use in our program.
Okay, so just a follow-up question. So if I'm the organizer of the trust, I can't be the trustee. I have to name someone else to manage things.
Yeah, so that's traditionally how it's designed, and we tell you to flip it in the other way. So you are going to remember an agreement. So you are going to appoint someone else to be the grantor, and that person is going to appoint you to be the trustee.
Okay, got it, got it. And then I'm almost done. The charitable trust, if I don't have a ministry yet, do I need to make one first? Or can I make the charitable trust first and the ministry second?
So they could actually be the same entity. So with the nonprofit that we establish, you can run it like a ministry, you can run it like a charity, you can run it like a church, you can run it like a school, you can run it like however you want to run it.
Okay. And then last question. I'm a sole proprietor of a business, so I already have an EIN. Is that good enough for the business trust or no?
Every entity needs its own EIN. So it doesn't matter that you have a sole proprietor EIN. The business trust needs its own EIN separate from your sole proprietor.
Okay.
Yeah, because your sole proprietor is a separate entity. Your business trust is a separate entity. Your family trust is a separate entity. So you can't use your EIN from your sole proprietor to do business with the business trust.
You know
Okay,
what?
got
Maybe
it. Okay. Okay. Yep.
Any
I
other
got it. I got it.
any other questions?
Thank you. I'm excited. I hope to join the next week's webinars. But like if I'm working during the week, I can watch it again later, right?
Yeah, it's recorded. So we record the entire sessions. You get lifetime access to it, and we have it uploaded usually 1 to 2 hours after the session is done.
Okay, good, good, good. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Kiana. We're so excited that you are getting into the workshop. So we hope to see you next week. So we're gonna hit the ground running on Monday.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
All right. You have a good night. Next we
Yes.
have LJ.
Good night, Christina. I just have a few
Hey.
questions for your time.
All right, wonderful.
I know you went over the foreclosure, how the trust can help you avoid foreclosure, but my Wi-Fi was kind of acting up. Can you just say that one more time?
Yeah, so if you have a bank that's trying to foreclose on you, right? You have to depend on the process. So it can help you pre-foreclosure. If you are already in the foreclosure process, then you cannot transfer your property into a trust. Okay, because I have conversations with a lot of people, and so that is called an illegal transfer. If you try to move that property that's already have claims against it and it's already in the foreclosure process, okay? So this only works before. Now, before, what you want to do is you want to put that property into a trust because it can prevent the creditor from coming after the trust, and it can prevent the creditor from being able to foreclose because they can't serve the trust.
And the creditor not meaning the mortgage company, meaning another outside creditor.
No, the
No,
mortgage
the
company is the creditor.
mortgage.
The
Oh,
mortgage company or whatever third party that they sold the mortgage to. You're on mute.
but if you're in the forbearance process, is that considered like pre-foreclosure, or that's like foreclosure, so it's out of the bounds?
No, wait, you say you out of the four. So if they've initiated paperwork to let you know that they're going to move forward with foreclosure, then you are heading into pre-foreclosure.
Okay, but I was saying like I'm in forbearance, so that means
Okay, so then they haven't started it yet.
okay. So if I was to make a trust and transfer it over, I will be safe in that, or there's no like alert or anything like that.
Yeah, so you are at the stage where you can still protect the property.
And then another thing that I don't know, I guess I'm a type of person that is trying to really be in private. So when I think about like the different trusts, and then when I'm kind of confusing myself. So like I want to know if you can set up like a LLC, but it's like private, and then that LLC is I guess the beneficiary, or like the trustee of the trust or something of that sort. So like setting up a
Okay,
LLC, and
how is the LLC private?
I don't know, I was thinking about or looking into having the trust set up in like Delaware, Wyoming, those type of states, and having it
And
be private
yeah,
that way.
you can choose. So, an LLC can serve as a grantor, trustee, or beneficiary. Okay. The LLC is not private. So just because they don't show who the owner is on the public records doesn't mean it's private. Okay, it's not private. There's no such thing as a private LLC. Okay. Um, the next thing is you can choose your what we call domicile. So whatever state that you want to set up the trust, you can choose that. So if you want to set up the trust in Delaware, then the trust needs a Delaware address. If you want to set it up in Wyoming, it needs a Wyoming address. You can choose whichever state that you want.
Okay. but no matter what, it's not private. So it's just setting up these trusts. That's the biggest thing, biggest entity that's gonna give you the best protection, utilizing the 5 categories that you stated. So LLC, just
Yeah,
keep that in mind.
because if you're setting up a specific type of trust that is non-statutory, that's what makes it private. So LLCs are statutory entities. They are not private. Never have been, never will be.
Got it. And someone put corporations, is that private in any way, or that's
Those
just
are statutory entities. Every single entity that you have to go to the state in order to set it up is statutory.
of course not private. Got it. Okay. Got it. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate you so much.
You are so welcome. I appreciate you too. And I like your brown hand, girl. I be trying to do it too with the brown hand. All right. Next we have Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette. I see that smile. I see all
Christina.
52
Hi.
teeth. Oh my God.
She said 52.
Okay, right. She
I
on
actually have all
camera.
32. Being
Right.
funny,
All
but I
52.
do. I have all 32.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
so if the trustee and or beneficiaries happen to establish citizenship in other countries or another country, is there any type of penalty or any negative thing for them trying to claim anything for the trust that they are part of? I
No.
don't know how that would even be possible, but
Yeah, so the jurisdiction of the trust, it depends on the domicile, right? So if you're choosing it to be here in the United States, then then it's US base, okay? It's domestic. Now, it is not required that any of the parties inside of the contract be US citizens. So there's no restrictions
okay.
on if you are a US citizen or if you're not, or if you have dual citizens or 5 passports or anything like that. There's no restrictions.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So my next question is there a penalty for dissolving the trust before it expires? And no? Okay.
So only the trustee is able to terminate the trust, and you're going to terminate the trust when you deem that it's absolutely necessary. So if you feel like, oh, the trust is at zero, or you feel like it's now the best time to distribute the assets, you can terminate the trust at any point in time. You set it up for 100 years, but in 5 years you feel like, oh, it's time to terminate, you go for it because you have the power to do so, and it's inside of the contract that the trustee can choose to terminate at any point in time.
Okay.
So
And
whenever you
so the
have
next,
questions or discrepancies, you always want to go to the contract.
okay. All right. And the next thing I was going to ask you was about the contract. My last question was, is there any type of restriction or penalties or what have you on how many times the contract can be changed?
No, it's unlimited.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're so welcome.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Jeanette.
You're
All
welcome.
right,
Thank you.
thank you for being here. All right, next we have Mel. Next we have Mel. You're on mute. How long until one is able to, hold on 1 second, let me read it. How long until one is able to use the IUL funding? It depends on how much money you put inside of the IUL. So remember I said it has to be properly structured. So with your IULs, there's something called a what the heck is the name of this thing? It's called a surrender charge. Okay, and so the surrender charge is equivalent to, in my mind, is equivalent to a security deposit, right? And so let's just say that when you structured, so your surrender charge and my surrender charge are two different charges, okay? So let's just say when you set up your policy, your surrender charge was $2,000, right? And so now you're putting $1,000 a month, right? But a certain portion of that $1,000 a month is going to your surrender charge, right? So it's paying it little by little. So let's just say 5 months into you paying, you already paid a premium of 5,000 and the surrender charge was fulfilled, right? So with the surrender charge is usually for a 2-year period, and what it is pretty much a security deposit saying that you're not going to cancel your IUL within the 2-year period. If you don't cancel your IUL, that surrender charge then gets surrendered and it goes back into your cash value. So then that 2,000 goes back, into your cash value and it goes up. Okay. So you being able to pull money out depends on the surrender charge. Once the surrender charge is satisfied, then you're able to pull money out at any point in time. So it depends on your policy. I'm in my 20s, just got a car under my name on a car note, can transfer into the trust to stop the repossession. So you have to have the title of the vehicle in order for the vehicle to be owned by the trust. If you have a lien holder or a bank or somebody who's, over the car note, they have the title. You don't have the title. So it's impossible for you to transfer the title of an asset if you don't actually have the title. So the car needs to be paid off or you need to refinance it into the trust. So I'm not sure if you're able to refinance it into the trust in order to help with that. And then, do I need assets or a lot of money to start with generating income? No, you don't. You don't need no assets. You don't need no money. So you can start acquiring assets zero down. I told you that's what I did when I was 25. My first property, I did not put $1 single dollar. And my hard money lender, which is my mentor, he is still my hard money lender till this day, 10 years later. So that's it. All right. Next we have, thank you, Mel. Next we have Steve and then Gary, and then we're gonna wrap it up, you guys. It's getting late over here.
Okay, let me just say real quick, Christine. We talked about taking loans from your IRL or your
Yep.
your IRL prep. Isn't it important to pay those loans back?
If you want to, so you have a choice and the life insurance carrier will tell you that you have a choice. If you pay it back, then it's just going to build up your cash value. So you're going to have more money in your cash value. If you don't pay it back, then it's fine. Like I said, it's just automatically deducted from your death benefit.
Okay, and the last question again, if you have a mortgage and you have like a second on it, like a HELOC or a home equity agreement, can you still put that in the trust?
Absolutely, yes. So your mortgage is going to remain intact in your personal name and on your credit, and the property is going to be transferred into the name of the trust. It does not trigger the due on sale clause because it was transferred to a trust. It wasn't transferred to someone's personal name or to a company. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So it's going to be safe, and your mortgage is going to remain intact.
And those who people that you're responsible to in getting the HELOC or the home equity agreement, they wouldn't have a problem with that going into a trust.
So they shouldn't. And I will tell you this, you need to understand, right?
Mhm.
Understand that creditors, what are creditors going to tell you? Right? Creditors, right? So that company, right, that you have a HELOC with, right? There's a line of credit that's associated with your house, right? They don't have like a lien on your house like you have with the mortgage company, okay? So so if you go and tell them, right, because this is not something that you're like putting on Front Street, right? If you go and tell them, and they're going to be like, oh, well, no. Why? Because they don't want you to do it. Why? Because you're protecting that asset from them. That's why some banks even want to open up a bank account for an irrevocable trust Because if they ever extend you credit, they know that they can't
Right.
come after it.
Right. I see. I see. You just do it
Mm,
privately, basically. Yeah.
yeah, you don't
Okay.
have to. Yeah, you don't have to let the HELOC people know.
Then, good to know. I appreciate you. You know it.
You're so welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Take care.
You're welcome. You too.
Okay.
All right,
All right.
next we have Gary. Hey, Gary.
Hey, yeah, quick question. Which one of
Uh,
the done for you, is that the 50% off?
yeah. So you can get 50% off any of the programs, okay? So you can, if you want to do the course, if you want to do the workshop, or if you want to do the private sessions.
Okay,
So you can just go to the website, enroll, and then choose whichever program you want, and the code will work for any one of the three.
what's the code?
Trust 50. So it's just all one word.
Okay,
Trust and then the number 50, no spaces.
capital letters.
It's not case sensitive.
Right, okay. So those 5 Zoom calls, they are like for next week, and if I don't get them next week, then I'm out of the Zoom calls. Is that it?
No. You have lifetime access. So if you can't do next week, you can get access to the recordings, and then the next live session is going to be in July. So we do them every 4 weeks. So then so we're doing it the first week of June, and then we'll do it like the first week of July.
Okay, so I'll have access to the 5 Zoom calls every month
For life. For
for life.
life.
Okay.
Yep.
And that you say trust is set up the right way. That
Yep.
is, you look over that trust. Is
Yep.
that the
Yeah.
reason that?
Yeah, we double check everything for you. We double check everything for you.
Great, great. Done with you. Okay. I want in.
Oh, okay. Sounds good, Mr. Gary. I'm excited. So hopefully
Okay.
you can move some things around in your schedule because we want to see you next week.
Okay.
But we are so glad that you are going to enroll into the program. So congratulations.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right. Any other final questions or concerns? If not, I am going to say good night. It was an absolute pleasure being with you guys here tonight. I'm so glad that you were able to get this information. This is information that you don't want to sit on, because I talk to people, they're like, oh, I've been learning about trust for 5 years. And my question is, well, why haven't you done anything? So now is the time to take action, okay? So like I said, you guys are the generational curse breakers. So it's up to us to be able to break those chains of poverty that's in our family lineage and our bloodlines. And so that's what we're doing now by building that legacy, because now our future generations are going to be secured. So with that being said, I hope to see you guys next week. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. So you can email us info@7ways2wealth. You can call us 305-749-9215. You can visit us on social media, and the website is wealthytrustee.com. You guys have an amazing evening and a great weekend. Bye. God bless everyone. Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.